I'd like to call the meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment to order on this fine, sunny April the 11th. And my name is Ross Eady. I'm the City Council from Mynarski, and I'm your chairperson. And also with us today, we have Councillors Mays from St. Vital. We have Councillor Rollins from Fort Rouge, East Fort Garry, and is Councillor Chambers there?
Councillor Chambers is on city business today.
Oh, yes, on city business.
I'll move a motion to excuse the absence.
Yeah, please do. On city business?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. We also have with us today our Mr. Tim Shanks, who has brought his team here today for our meeting. And we have our senior clerk, Mr. Harris, with us today. And I should do my land acknowledgement. We are meeting on Treaty 1 land, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Innu, and the Dakota peoples. We are also meeting here on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. And we also receive our water from Shoal Lake, Band 40 in Treaty 1 territory. Councillor Rollins, would you move the minutes of the meeting of March 10th?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. We have delegations today, and we have Mr. Delbridge is up first, so there's no need for a motion. So
Okay.
Mr. Delbridge, if you would like to take the chair and present. I think you're here to speak on which report?
Leaf and yard waste collection.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you, Chairperson and councillors, for giving me a moment. I'll be very brief today because I think this is a very straightforward. It'll be cut and dry, kind of the position that I think that we take as QB. I'm the president of Local 500 and I represent the City of Winnipeg workers. I just wanted to mention that for the record. And with respect to this motion, I think that it's very important to understand that we see a significant cost savings of bringing this work back in-house. We're seeing, roughly in the amount of around $2 million over the course of the term of the contract. If it was to be awarded back in-house, we believe that it should be. We've taken this position on much of the waste collection. There's the bulky family waste collection. There was significant savings, despite what the administration had come back forward with, disputing that a number of years ago. I can tell you that the costs were significantly higher than what was initially reported. I can't get into details on that because I did have to sign a DFR, not to discuss the details of our settlement on that issue with bulky waste. So I won't get into details on that, and I'll respect that. I can tell you that the main garbage collection contract, we've seen those increased costs and those extension fees significantly increase there as well. So I'm not surprised to see this $2 million savings. I can tell you that the taxpayers and the citizens of Winnipeg are getting sick and tired of these cost overruns and these inflated costs. Often, this is happening through garbage collection. Despite sometimes what we're hearing, we do have figures that dispute that. Often they're not looked at, and I don't know if it's just political ideology. The companies that we're looking at that are likely to bid on these companies or this particular contract of yard waste and leaf collection are international companies that work, a large component in and amongst the United States. In a recent Probe Research poll, the clear majority of Winnipeggers want to see more work coming back in-house because they believe that the positive impact that it would have on our local economy is the way that they would like to see things done. And so I hope that you would listen to most Winnipeggers They are correct, they are right. And that's how we need to proceed. So, like I said, I'm not gonna go on about this for a long time. I think it's clearly evident. The cost savings, what Winnipeggers want, what's gonna be in the best interest of our city as a whole, what's gonna be in the best interest of our local economy. Let's start looking at returning some of these, cost overruns and bring back some efficiencies by bringing work back in-house to save the taxpayers of Winnipeg money. They want this. We see it in the admin report, the cost savings of approximately $2 million. That's significant. And, I would not be surprised if there is some political ideology that comes forward as this motion progresses, to maybe sway what those numbers are. I've seen it happen before. I've seen it happen with golf courses. Councillor Mace is well aware of that. And so I strongly urge you to stand up for what Winnipeggers want, what's in the best interest of Winnipeggers. We need the cost savings. Things are getting expensive, and we should stop awarding contracts to private profit-driven contractors, where a lot of our money is leaving our local economy. So once again, I'm willing to take any questions, but I encourage you to support the motion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Delbridge. I'm sure my colleagues have questions. Would you like to go first, Councillor Williams?
No, I think that was actually pretty straightforward. I mean, this is just, the motion as it stands is based on the report we got in 2024 about one zone, but, that doesn't preclude us from looking at the other zones as well. We have some time, some months, I would think, before we actually proceed to go out to the tender on the garbage and recycling part of this. So we do have some time to look into this, but I'm assuming you're not just, your comments are broader than just one zone. I'm assuming you're saying, look, if we can bring it in across the whole city, so much the better.
I mean, I know what I want to say. Yes, I'm going to try to be very respectful here, because I think that if anyone could not see the rationale, what Winnipeggers want, the cost savings, I'd be stunned to see anyone not support this work coming back in-house. But I think it's time that we start looking at efficiencies. We start looking at our local economy. We start looking at not trying to support profit-driven private contractors that are international companies. Keep the work here, and let's do what's right for people.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Rollins?
Yes, please. My colleague, Councillor Gilroy, has been long a voice of the downtown area. She shares a downtown with me, Councillor Santos, and indeed all of council. This motion really considers a focus on the downtown area, where garbage would be collected by city staff. There has been a long time refraining on bulky waste from Minarski and more. One of the reasons why last term I said, let's try something more different and bring that labor uber local was because of concerns of cleanliness of the city. And I was hoping you could comment on that.
I'm shocked that we continue to be beholden to these profit-driven contractors that are international based. Why are we not supporting our local economy and supporting our own local staff here? We need to be doing that. We should be looking at, we have a much more control over our own workforce than we do over some independent firm that bids on a contract. We do see the mess and the condition of our city. We can direct our staff at any given time to city staff to evolve and adapt, as based on needs within various areas where it's specifically outlined within these, private contractors. I think it would clean up our city. I'm not sure what the rationale is and why people cannot see this. It's shocking. Maybe it's easier just to sign a contract at Ray and Jerry's with a contractor as opposed to managing a workforce. I don't know what the issue is, why this is being done. It's gotta stop. Look at it. Look at the reports, look at it in details. And I mean, we go back to the Gulf services where they're telling us it's gonna cost us millions of dollars. We're getting admin reports and we're gonna see that. We're gonna see an admin report come back and start trying to dwindle those numbers down. I seen it with bulky waste where I sat through every aspect of that, and I can tell you the cost overruns are staggering, staggering. And once again, I can't get into details because I had to sign an NDA on this. But at the end of the day, in every aspect, you're costing Winnipeggers more. You're not helping our economy. We can do better if we do this in-house. We can keep it a much cleaner city, and it's a win-win for everyone. And maybe it might be hard to manage a workforce. I don't know what the issue is, but roll up your sleeves and get to it and provide some direction.
Thank you.
One quick, just one question on the golf courses. You mentioned that. So I think everyone gets the reference, but it's 2013 staff recommendation to privatize operation of the 4 city golf courses.
Well, you know what? Okay, I don't wanna hear that. I have a quick question. Mr. Delbridge has a meeting he has to get to, so I wanna ask him one very essential, important question. Who are the private corporations ultimately accountable to?
The shareholders
Thank you.
that are based across the world.
Thank you.
And so I just want to clarify, who are the in-house city staff accountable to? The taxpayers and citizens of Winnipeg.
Thank you.
And I want to also recognize Councillor Gilroy for her taking a stance on this. I want to, everyone that has taken a position on doing what a clear majority of taxpaying Winnipeggers and working class Winnipeggers want and standing up for them. I want to thank all those councillors that are standing up for that majority.
Thank you, Mr. Delbridge. I know you have to go, so appreciate it. And we'll be dealing with that report, the motion later on in the meeting.
Thank you. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your meeting. Have a good day.
Okay, our next delegation.
Our next delegation is Dennis Berman to be heard in opposition to request for budget revision for the South End Sewage Treatment Plant, Subic Nutrient Removal Expansion Capital Project for Report 5.
Okay.
It's a long time.
You have still 10 minutes to make your presentation, sir.
Mr. Berman did bring a visual presentation as well, so I'm just helping him get set up. Second one.
Thank you much. Good morning. My name is Dennis Berman. I reside at 125 Wildwood Park, Section C. And I'm here today presenting to the Standing Committee on Water and Waste and wish to register my opposition to the proposed $10 million budget increase that has been presented as a method to complete the ongoing South End Treatment Plant nutrient removal expansion capital project. I have to say at the beginning, as a longtime sailor and active member of the Gimli Yacht Club, it should be noted that I am not in opposition to the nutrient removal project as such, but I am in opposition as to the method that the committee is proposing to fund the final part of this current project. In my review of the item 5, part of the administration report regarding the request for additional funds, what seems to me for work that is deemed deficient and outstanding items has already been contracted under a separate contractor for the South End Sewage Treatment Plant. I do not understand why additional funds are required to complete this project as the work has already been contracted. Should it not be expected that the existing contractor be required to complete the project without having to allocate or expend additional funds? It seems that the City of Winnipeg Water and Waste Department should enforce the current contract. And if the contractor is unwilling and unable to complete the work, the contract should be terminated and damages assigned and another contractor hired to complete the work. I sincerely hope that the existing contractor has not already been paid for outstanding items listed in the administrative report. As it is always easier to get action if you already hold the funds that were promised for a completed project. As mentioned earlier, I have concerns as how this money is to be found or borrowed from an already approved 2025 environmental projects reserve, specifically earmarked for basement flood management strategy program. This $10 million funding was to be used to mitigate basement flooding issues that will always arise in older areas of Winnipeg due to older and undersized combined and land drainage lines. This fact concerns me as I am affected by overland flooding on an annual basis and is the reason why I stand before you today. The Wildwood Park area of Fort Garry in the past has experienced major difficulties with its under-designed land drainage and sanitary sewage systems. Wildwood Park was developed in 47-48, and given its 76-year existence, I am sure land drainage design and engineering standards have been revised to provide better protection from seasonal flooding events. Just so everyone understands Wildwood Park's location, Wildwood Park is surrounded by a dike that is formed by North Drive, Oakenwald Avenue, and South Drive, which was placed there after the 50 flood, and today has held back all the floods that have come at us from the south. The entire Wildwood Park area is actually 2 to 3 feet lower than the required provincial water protection levels, and as such, any water or snow that falls or melts in the area during Red River flooding periods must be pumped up into the Red River. Our current 78-year-old internal land drainage system is woefully undersized to handle variable weather events such as quick spring melts and heavy rainfall events. In essence, Wildwood Park is indeed a very shallow bowl, virtually surrounded by a bend in the Red River, and flooding events are a reality that must be considered as a potential flood for all times. This is a photo of the lane behind our house in 2020. That's my neighbor's daughter enjoying a kayak journey around our street, our lane. And you can see that she's got enough water to float a kayak in. This was caused by a flooded and frozen drain line that's immediately below her. That lasted for about a week. The city sent out steamer trucks and all kinds of equipment to clear this. And it took I think finally Mother Nature warmed up to a point where it finally let go and we were able to get our lane back. The other fact that has to be considered too is we've been living in Wildwood Park for 37 years, and I've involved in many designs for homes and additions in the Wildwood Park. And all 300 of those homes, I'm sure, are set too low into the existing grade by at least a foot. And As such, we have minimum freeboard when the lane floods of a few inches. And it should be noted that overland flooding in many insurance policies is classified as an exemption. So in ways that we're not even covered. By way of illustration of our experiences, water egress issues into our own home, I offer the following to consider. We purchased a home in 1988 and have experienced some level of lane flooding almost every year. 4 years after moving into the Wildwood home, the public lane behind our home filled the rear yard to the point where the water flowed between our entry door threshold and cascaded down the basement stairs and finally ended up draining into the basement floor drain. The source of that water meltwater was determined to be the same frozen catch basin that's under the girl with kayak. Because nothing has been done since that time, since 1994. After the water receded, I conducted a level survey of our rear yard and found that the grade elevation at our entry door threshold was the same elevation as the edge of the lane some 50 feet away. For comparison purposes, I believe that current City of Winnipeg yard grading standards require that minimum slopes or grades away from residences to lanes and streets must be a minimum of 2%. And if that were the case, with 50 feet, our threshold should have been 12 inches higher. However, it is not possible to raise our home 12 inches. We are dependent on the city-owned and operated land drainage system to function as a reliable device to protect our homes from overland flooding. Having trouble with this one, Brendan. It's the. I'll just keep going. These events usually occur in the early spring during spring melt period, but have also occurred during late fall and is always related to the two particular catch basins that we have in our area. When we experience overland flooding, thank you.
That your presentation?
Pardon me?
You said thank you, does that?
Oh, no, I'm not finished yet. I'm just having
Okay, all right.
technical challenges here. See if I can enlarge that a bit.
Comment about politics or.
Sorry, we can't have people speaking on from the,
Comment that it's.
so, are you registered as a delegation?
When we experience lane flooding events, our only option is to contact City of Winnipeg Works Department and request assistance. And when they can, they send out a steamer truck and trailer, and the crews spend a great deal of time attempting to thaw the underground piping. I expect that City of Winnipeg records the number of times that crews and equipment are sent out to clear land drainage systems. And I believe that if those complaint records were consulted, Winnipeg Wildwood Park Section C would form a list of the most blocked and frozen drains in Wildwood Park.
Are you near conclusions?
Um,
Your 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Beeped at us here.
I got 2 more pages.
2 more statements?
2 more pages.
Extension,
I
Mr.
think
Chair?
you're moving extension for 2 minutes. Thank you. All those in favor? Nobody's opposed. You have 2 minutes to conclude, sir.
Thank you.
And there will be questions.
Okay. And I'll carry on. I'm not a civil engineer or land drainage expert, but it seems obvious to me that the land drainage catch basins and related underground piping in Wildwood Park are either blocked by debris or frozen solid, undersized and possibly collapsed. The repair and replacement of underground piping that is supposed to protect our homes from overland flooding is not complicated and is certainly not as complex as the nutrient removal system that is coupled with the south end sewage treatment plant. But I believe it is more important as it directly affects more homeowners in older communities that are served by undersized or combined sewage collection system. Today, I stand before this committee with a signed petition from our neighbors and ask that the City of Winnipeg Water and Waste and Department of Public Works coordinate their efforts and provide functioning and adequately sized land drainage system. This request for a minimum services to the older parts of Winnipeg cannot be completed if the $10 million redirection of committed funds proceeds. As promised, 2024 repairs and upgrades to our sewage and paving in the Wildwood Park area has long been overdue. And it is noted that homeowners have already paid their taxes and sewage fees for over 6 decades. And it's now time to reinvest their tax dollars back into our community. This committee has a choice to make. You can rob the funds from approved or established programs which are meant to protect our neighborhoods, or you can respect the intent of the approved programs and do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, your time's up, and there will be questions, but I just want to point something out today. They're talking about utilizing $10 million of combined sewer overflow area dollars, and I'm not sure that, you make a good case for Wildwood. I live behind a dike as well. There is collection of water at times, but it's not as big an area as where you live. But just so you know, for today, this is money directly allocated for that we're using from one side for CSO.
So, sorry, I didn't hear.
Not like.
Point of order, Councillor Edie, why are
Yes.
you debating?
I'm not debating. I'm just telling him. Thank you. Question, Councillor Rollins?
Yes, I question.
There's no point of order. I'm just pointing out he's made a request for something that's outside of what we're talking about today. That's all
I
I'm saying.
don't agree. That's why I'm raising it with you, Mr. Chair. He's
Alright.
drawing a direct line from
Last
a
questions.
basement flooding mitigation and the impacts on him to the item that proposes a
Well, I
$10
think
million
it's
withdrawal.
in his presentation, I'm pointing out.
But that's a matter of debate and I wholly disagree.
All right. You can disagree. Have you got questions for the man?
Yes. The chair has challenged that you're perhaps not in order today. Why did you see fit to come? In addition to perhaps your counselor saying there's an item that may be of interest to you.
Well, this is, like I said, we had our first flood event in 1994, and it's an annual thing. And we have been chasing our counselor, first of all, Jenny Gerbasi, and now Counselor Rollins. And we don't seem to be getting ahead on this thing. And every year it does seem to be getting worse. This last round of land drainage issues in the lane turned out to be more difficult than just water. We had a cold snap, which froze all of the ice in the lane, which then formed ruts after the cars were going through. People were getting hung up on the ruts. Tow trucks were called. In fact, the City of Winnipeg grader happened to be close by and they yanked one of the cars off the ruts. My wife has MS. She didn't leave the home for 2 weeks and I was out of town. The reason she didn't leave, she was worried about backing out of our garage and getting hung up. And then what is she going to do? Try to walk through ice ridges and water with forearm crutches. the only thing I could suggest was phone the police or phone an ambulance. I mean, this is substandard. And my linkage to the sewage treatment plant, well, it's a bit of a stretch. It's still, they're proposing to take some money from their project, from our project to do their project. What I'm saying is that they've already funded their project. Why don't they just carry on, finish the project using their funds and leave the 10 million alone? That's my point.
Thank you.
If I can, one question.
Yeah, please.
Just to, I think hopefully shed a little more light on this. There's a combined sewer district called Coburn-Calrossie that's been the source of work for some years now, inconveniencing anyone coming from St. Vital trying to get to the Wildwood Tennis Club, as my children tell me, and my wife, and distance runners, but so various work going on. You're near the Calrossie bit.
I know where
aren't
that
you?
is.
Yeah. Okay, so Calrossie's, like, you're right next to that, aren't you?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, okay.
Been by it many times.
Is it within Colorado?
No, it's not. It's a separate sewer district
Okay,
council.
thank you. Okay. Sorry, you were answering the question. Sorry, sir, I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah.
What,
I'll ask a question, but then here, I'm good.
You don't have any other questions? No, Councilor Rowland, so
I'm good.
you're good, okay. Thank you for your presentation, sir. It's too bad you're not within the Colorado. There's a lot of work going on there. Okay, all right, but, and money in the environment fund is like paying for the CSO work that is happening. So, all right, thank you, sir.
If I might ask,
Sure.
no,
Are you asking or adding?
I'm asking a question. And the question is, I guess basically, first of all, when is a decision going to be made on this item on the agenda?
We're going to be debating and discussing it today, and we will make a decision that will go on to Executive Policy Committee and Council for a decision. So can't tell you exactly how it's going to go, but that's the timeline. Okay, sir? All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Our next delegation.
That concludes delegations.
That
Mr. Chair.
concludes delegations. I'm wondering if I could just take a quick break, colleagues. Would you be okay with that?
So moved.
Yeah, for
only if you feel that we should pay tribute to Jeff Pat.
Yes.
He's here and he's retirement is looming.
Call the meeting of the Water, Waste and Environment Committee back to order. We have report number 1, which is on building emissions. Did you want to say anything before we get started?
Yes, an announcement, thank you. We are lucky to have Jeff Patton here with us, who has announced his retirement in the next month or two. Next month, I think, from City of Winnipeg. So I'm glad we're able to have Jeff here, who was a familiar face for many years with water and with water and sewer issues, of course. So, and has been our infrastructure guy for some years. So always ready to discuss these matters. So I've appreciated that. I've butted heads with Jeff on occasion over the years, but by and large got along well and certainly got a lot of thorough answers. Never shortage of words from Jeff, I gotta say. We always got a good long answer, good thorough answer. So thank you for that, Jeff, over the years. And we've discovered we were at the same concert in 1981. So happy retirement, and Jeff has some music watching retirement plans that I frankly envy. So thank you, Jeff, for your years of service here, and hopefully we'll wish you a happy retirement and whatever else you plan to do.
Thank you very much, councillors and Councillor Mays. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mays. You probably worked with Jeff the most over the years.
Yes, I think so.
So, anyway,
And
we
we're
all,
still on speaking terms, so that's good.
yeah, we all appreciate Mr. Patton's, work. So, could you, I guess you're the point person on this,
Yes, Councillor Eady. So, so Jeff Patton, Director of Assets and Project Management. I'm joined today with Brad Erickson, Manager of Municipal Accommodations, and Mel Chatfield, our Energy Analyst within Municipal Accommodations. So we're here to present our admin report on the Building Emissions Reduction Strategy. So this was a report that was requested by through the budget process and some extensions, but I'm just going to give a high level introduction, then turn it over to our subject matter experts to provide you some more details. So the building strategy addresses lowering greenhouse gases emissions in city-owned buildings. Buildings are a major source of greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Winnipeg. In 2022, energy use within city buildings represented over 34% of total energy use in Winnipeg. City-owned buildings also contributed 21% of Winnipeg's greenhouse gas emissions. So this really underscores the importance and with this strategy, in the great words of the fabulous New Zealand band Split Ends and the incomparable Neil Finn, it's one step ahead for the city for the city in its goal toward net zero building emissions by 2050. So we're presenting a scaled program and making a referral to the 2026, recommending a referral to the 2026 budget process. There are operational and capital requirements for the program. So maybe I'll turn it over to Mel now and she can go through some more specifics and we can entertain some questions for you as well.
So this strategy, it focuses on asset management, operational adjustments, and monitoring and feedback. So within the strategy, we aim to reduce energy consumption, lower operational costs, and of course, decrease greenhouse gas emissions. So the way that this strategy has been put together is that we have separated into 3 different priority groups. The first priority is the building management system upgrades and retro commissioning. So this is the most cost-effective priority. Then we go on to do priority 2, which is building energy optimization and sustainable practices. And so this is where we are doing some studies, but also starting to implement some more building and larger equipment retrofits. And then the priority 3 is the comprehensive end-of-life portfolio and strategic planning. So really planning for our future beyond 2030. So also within the report, we have put together strategic building projects. Some of those were taken from our previous admin report where we were asked to put together a list of buildings which could benefit from energy efficiency and carbon emission reduction projects. And we've also put a list together of retro commissioning projects along with the building management system, i.e. Metasys upgrades that are needed now.
So that's our kind of brief overview of the report. Just one key item, we're presenting some cost saving utility measures in the report. These are done without the carbon tax as of April 1st, the carbon tax, and also highlighting the fact that we continue a relationship with Efficiency Manitoba, and we're working very collaboratively with Efficiency Manitoba and to fund some of our retrofits, also to look for other funding opportunities that can augment city funding on these initiatives as well. So so it's a scale program in terms of kind of near-term work. I think we're estimating just about $6 million worth of initial works related to operation and some capital improvements, and then some larger ticket items for the building upgrades, as Melanie indicated, that we had presented previously. These were large HVAC systems, upgrades to pools and other amenities that could reduce greenhouse gases as well, but they're very capital intensive, big money projects, but. So we're open to any questions from the committee.
Councillor Rowland first.
So congratulations, Laura Tyler really does a raving endorsement in this package on the record of the plan, and I'm really appreciative of that. It's a bit of a banner day for climate, I think, that this is here. And that we are in the middle of the federal election. You mentioned the support that you're looking at external. I think it's important in the context of green buildings that we're doing all we can to drive a discussion federally at this time. And, you know, of course, provincially, but federally at this time. You know, I won't get you to talk about the politics of that. Councillor Mays and I have that because we signed on to the Climate Caucus calls to action, the federal election here, I think just yesterday, both of I with 20 minutes to go. But with respect to sustainability buildings, what purpose-built program would you be looking for? If it's created now, let me know. If it isn't created, what would you be looking at and need?
So maybe I'll just start, Councillor. So in terms of funding sources, we're definitely working with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. We've made applications to the Green Inclusive Building, Community Building Fund. So those applications are in progress specifically for the Turtle Island Community Center and the St. Boniface Museum projects. So we're always looking for new opportunities for advancing energy efficiency. So we're keeping our eyes out for any net new programs, but leveraging these ones that are currently funded and active. And but we know that they are oversubscribed. But we're trying to make a good case that that our costs, our projects are very, very beneficial, have a good cost benefit ratio, and that's about how we can make a good case to the federal government for funding.
And can you talk about the show already in progress? What buildings are you proud of that where we've accessed the funding? I recall the Pan Am pool tile ceilings, but I'm wondering if you could fill me in on, or anyone that's listening, like Laura Tyler, that we've had success in drawing down money for green builds. We have an amazing green build sector in the province. But I was hoping you could tell me more about the show already in progress.
So as Jeff mentioned, we do work closely with Efficiency Manitoba. So just over the past 3 years, we've received roughly $475,000 from them. That is made up of quite a few smaller projects, mainly lighting projects. So switching all of our lighting over to LED, which is a really important first step. But we've also secured additional funding to do studies, for instance, the ground source heat pump study, which was carried out at Sargent Park Arena. And in addition to that, for instance, the St. Boniface Museum, they applied for the Green and Inclusive Community Building program themselves and actually won that money. However, we played a big part in putting that application forward. For instance, we did the energy modelling side of it. So, and in addition, I'm working with Gord Chapel at the moment to access funding from FCM for energy audits, and that's across his portfolio and also ours.
Any more questions, Councillor Moore? Councillor Meeks.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I was very pleased with that Neil Finn reference, because I thought you were going to go to that song that was when I came running to you, I was following the light from a dead star. So luckily it's more positive, much more positive. It is one step ahead. So I've stolen a few. No, that's good. It is a step ahead, but two things, I guess. I get that the cost benefit changes when the carbon tax comes out. That's pretty simple, but two things. In the costing of Keniston and the costing of Chief Peguis, there was we attributed $250 of benefit to every ton of carbon saved. I get we're not doing a formal cost benefit here, but I just wanna, I'll talk to this at other levels as well, but I mean, there's a savings here that has a societal benefit that we've recognized in other documents, right? I mean,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And in addition to this, specifically on the list of the specific building projects, we put together this list in consultation with, for instance, our maintenance crews, our projects people. These are all projects that will need to be done anyway. They have to be done. And what we would like to see is just maybe going that extra little step and just making them, I mean, hopefully net zero carbon, but like maybe at worst, better, lower those carbon emissions, lower, like get better energy efficiency.
and one more thing, I think, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and this is a better list. That list we got in 23 had stuff like Eldon Ross Pool save 1 ton of carbon, and then simultaneously, other departments recommend closing down Eldon Ross Pool. And you're like, come on. So this is more sophisticated, a little more. But what, like in 2023, we had a motion saying, give us a list of up to $80 million at 15 sites. So public admin comes back with, here's 15 sites, $50 million, and now we're down to 30 something ish. How did we land on that number? Or is it the best, how did we land on that? It on the one hand, it's down from 80, but we haven't put any actual money in on this, so any money would come out ahead.
So the list was put together on our priorities. Honestly, this list could be endless. It really could. But I also like this, the strategic building projects are really important, but also is the table that lists where we can update our building management systems and retro commissioning projects. Because if we don't get what we've already got working well, then we're missing a trick. We're missing the most cost-effective thing that we can do. So let's make sure that our equipment is scheduled properly. It's not running 24 hours a day, or maybe the schedule is slightly changed because the building has a different use and it hasn't been updated. So just smaller things like that to make sure what we've got already is working properly can really, really help. So that's why I'm definitely also focusing on that first table in priority 1, and then also making sure that we're doing the building energy audits. We're making sure that if we've got a new building project, we're not just putting the same old equipment in. We're actually looking into heat pumps, we're looking into better technologies, and we're also looking into the future, because we all know electrification is coming, and maybe we can't do a building where there's full electrification right now, but we can make sure our systems are set up so that in the future we can swap over really easily rather than have to retrofit the entire building. So yeah, it's really making sure that we plan for the future.
Yeah, I'll have some comments in the debate, but yeah, thank you.
Okay, no other questions. I have a couple of questions.
Oh, I do have one other, more procedural, but go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Well, you can.
It's really more for the clerks, which is, this does seem the kind of report where we should get some input from Climate Action Committee, which is meeting between now and EPC. But I'm not sure mechanically how to do that, but which is, it really isn't a question for, well, it's, I guess we have all the public service here. I guess it is a question for the public service.
I can answer because of the way the motion is. It does need to be a recommendation up to council, so it would need to be a recommendation to council to refer back for review and recommendation to the Standing Policy Committee.
Once
Oh, well.
it touches down at the climate action.
So yes, it would go to council. The recommendation to council would be to
Go back.
refer to Climate Action and Resilience Committee for review and recommendation back to the standing policy committee, which would ultimately need to go back.
Let me think about that.
Okay, well, you got time. I have some questions. My first question is, we have some ongoing projects that Jeff's been overseeing. He just sent us a report on how it's proceeding with renovations to city-owned run arenas, as well as one that's St. Tal, which is run by the hockey league or whatever. Are we going to be measuring that ongoing work? Like, is that factored into this to say we're achieving something, or like, are you tracking those efficiencies in
Yeah.
emissions?
I'll refer the question to Mel, and then maybe I've got one comment to add, Councillor Eady.
So at the moment, it is very ad hoc. It's usually me that goes in and looks to see if we have any savings as the energy analyst. However, within this strategy, the priority 2I is implement an M&V process, because we definitely recognise that it would be really great to have a standardised M&V process that we can definitely get actual figures from, rather than doing it as and when's necessary.
Could you the acronym?
Oh, yeah, measurement and verification, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, so Councillor, just so, with the work that we're doing on the arena, so there's been some great work done by MA in relates to putting controls on the ice plants as well, which are making the ice plants more efficient. And I know that one of our superintendents, Glenn's definition has been quoted, talks about a large energy savings. So we're definitely monitoring that. We take our bills and we're looking at monitoring savings with these new systems, and are able to make an estimate. And as Mel indicates, we'd like a more automated system that can help us track those savings better, because right now we have one energy analyst, and we rely on Mel going out there to do a more in-depth analysis to confirm the measurements, where we would rather have instrumentation to do a better job. So,
Well, that makes sense, but the work is ongoing, nevertheless. Also, like, okay, so this motion has been around, I can't remember, and all the work has been done. I really appreciate all the work that come up with this plan here. We just built a brand new District 3 police station. I believe, is that like a net zero new building there, or do you know, did you look at that? Like,
I've got one comment on that, Councillor. We can talk about that. So Mel can.
No, I don't believe that's. No, I know that's not net zero.
Yeah. So Councillor, I think we had a discussion about that during the award of the project, and certainly we were copying the designs from different from the other existing stations, and we're already had budget challenges on that project, but certainly and had more traditional, high efficiency, but traditional heating and ventilation systems. But all of our new buildings that were like since that point, we're trying to make them more energy efficient. Say the South Winnipeg Recreation Campus building will be net zero ready. It'll be ready, as Mel had indicated, systems. We're also in the process of designing the East End Rec Complex to be a net zero project, because that'll be a big recreation aquatic center. So there's several opportunities there, but there are costs. So we're making sure we're going to come back to council with I think later this year, with a recommendation on that capital program. It's not fully funded, but we're definitely taking a look at it. And I know we're working collaboratively with the Office of Sustainability and Water and Waste, because we're looking at a new kind of green building strategy and to leverage our existing strategy on new builds. But yeah, that specifically, we were already down a flight path that had to complete to get that project going.
I was involved in building, putting together the package, and got to dig some dirt with the new West Kildonan Collegiate out in the Seven Oaks School Division area. Now there we were looking at geothermal, but what they did is they went with like the mechanical and everything, like the air heating system or whatever, cooling was all from the upper level of the building. They said that that is a more efficient way, like there's efficiencies gained through that practice. Do you know if that's what they did at the District 3 police station?
So, no, like the design of the District 3 or that north end is more traditional in terms of its HVAC design. So, but certainly, you know, they're looking at, you know, you're looking at air handling in very, you know, that science is always evaluating. So, but certainly, we're looking at it in terms of geothermal. The city has implemented geothermal heating and cooling within the new amalgamated fire paramedic station, Windsor Park, Station 9. Fantastic new station. I think it's just all gone operational in the last few months. And that will also build us additional confidence in how to operate and maximize these systems. So it certainly is a great place to learn, but also to implement in other buildings as we can.
So here's the ultimate question. You ready? I know what's coming. We have a plan that says zero emissions by 2050. How is this plan moving us towards that goal?
So it's definitely moving us forward. This plan is specifically up to 2030. I would say it would be a really good step forward, as well as those specific projects listed. It really has a lot of the building blocks that we'll need to go forward. So yeah, it's hard to put a number on it, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. I would say it's a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, better than what we were doing. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions for me.
Can I follow up on one thing there, Mr.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jeff, isn't there a solar element to that Windsor Park? Solar power element at Windsor Park?
Yeah, so I believe I'm trying to, like, we do get LEED certifications, LEED Silver, there are LEED Gold, there are other building certifications. So certainly we've scheduled that. I don't have that off the top of my head in terms of the certifications, but our project manager would have that. If the community wants, I can follow up with that in terms of the design, but we're certainly all of our new projects, you know, are looking to be as energy efficient and go to that LEED development as part of our city current strategy, current policy from council.
Okay. So that's it we have for questions. Okay. All right. Anyone propose to move? Else? You're gonna move as is?
Yeah.
Okay.
With just with some notes that also mayors might likely have a bit of a touchdown at the budget resiliency and action committee, but that and with thanks to the public service.
Council, yeah, are
Yeah,
you gonna just move that at council or?
Yeah, I mean, both CAO office and mayor's office have indicated to me, oh, Park should take a look at this, but there doesn't seem to be a really efficient way to do that. So I will try and sort that out independent of this place, and we'll try and take a look at it when we have the agenda setting for that committee at 3:00 today. So we'll figure something.
So
Okay, just a quick question. The capital dollars here and stuff, that's a recommendation to the budget working group for the 2025 budget or 2026 budget.
That's correct. Yes, we're going to include it as unfunded risks in the 2020 budget process, and to the budget working group or what the So yes, they'll be like, we're definitely going to present this. There's a sample detail sheet that will be included in our department's submission to the budget process.
Right. So that sounds to me Counselor Mays, like there's time and opportunity, like if council decides to have the committee look at it, I don't think it would take them too long, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's sort of 6-1 after, it doesn't have, I'm reluctant to have it go all the way back to, have to come all the way back down, go all the way, like,
Okay.
EPC meets on the 22nd. If EPC wants to send it to CARC, then CARC meets by
Well, I think-
on the 24th, so we could see it, maybe that's informally.
Yeah, like the Climate Action Committee actually can look at it, the budget, you know, the real heavy lifting for the budget starts in the fall, right?
Yeah.
So there's time, even if we pass this at council, they can still look at it. It's a public report, right?
Yeah.
So,
Alternatively, a new business item or a presentation of the public service to CARC, which would not require the up and down, and it would be concurrent. It would just
Yeah, it's not bad.
perhaps allow the CARC to have a direct presentation and so that it can run concurrently, and then CARC does have a mechanism to get right to APC, correct?
It actually does need to come through the standing policy committee.
CARC reports into here.
Correct.
Okay, but it's still, the point remains the same. CARC is looped in. And so things can run concurrent. Time isn't really of the essence in the main. We're catching this ball in 2026 as proposed by the public service, so.
Just one note, maybe to be aware of, if this did go to the next CARC meeting, it would come to standing policy committee next month. So this item would have already been on the agenda. At that point.
that doesn't need, okay, so the climate,
As it stands,
the key is we have a Climate Action Committee. Councilor Mays chairs, but I think there's time to look at this and make suggestions. And EPC, correct me if I'm wrong, EPC's meeting is actually April the 22nd.
And CARC meets 24. So, well, perhaps Councilor, when we get to the end of the agenda, maybe we can debate a new business.
Like, I have no problem with this going to climate change, so, and I don't think the mayor would either. So, okay. Or the people who work on this file for the mayor. All right, so we have, Councillor Rollins is moving the recommendations of the public service. I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Report number 2 was Ferry, sorry, which one is this?
Ferry Road.
Yes,
Ferry Road, yeah.
the awarded contract for a ferry road in Riverbend CSO, contract 6. This is the Rutland Trunk, project. Very excited about this. As, in the report, the pre-tender estimate was actually, it was a hard estimate to do. We haven't had recent work of this size or nature, in the city, certainly not post-COVID. So we were trying to be very cautious with, careful with our pre-tender estimate. Pre-tender estimate was 59 million, almost 60 million. The successful award here that we're looking for permission to award is for 36.5 million. So it's quite a bit under. It's to over $20 million under. So that's good news. We did have a lot of bids, and they were all good bids. We reviewed the they were all pre-qualified, the bidders, by the way, with the RFQ step.
This is not,
Yeah, we don't just throw this out there. So we reviewed the scope and work plan with the low bidder, and we do recommend to proceed with this. They're a company from Ontario, and they're very aggressively bid this project. They want to get set up here, and it worked out with their own work plan. So we're satisfied. This is the right way to go. So we're looking for permission to award it. Just also for trivia's sake, the CSO district has about 5% of our capture targets. So this is a big chunk of our CSO program. Yep. So we're being part of this. The other information, the bidders listed here are on page 4 of the report, and they give you an idea of the spread there. And I know this leads into a report further in the agenda, but on page 5, where we talk about the authorized capital for the CSO budget and the funding source being the environmental projects reserve, you can see on page 5 the breakdown. We have currently $210 million of authorized capital, committed to various CSO projects. This award essentially gives us a little space in here that we will talk about in a further report.
And just for clarification, did all three bidders come under the estimate?
No, there was 5 bidders, 1 was over, and the other 3 were under. Under 4.
4 were under, okay. Questions, colleagues? Right.
Yeah, it's good news. It builds on a story I'll talk about more later, that these CSO projects seem to be coming in under budget. How does this relate? Is this the Rutland one?
Correct.
Because there's some reference in the later document about being 10 million under budget, but this is more than 10 million under budget.
No, the other report's only asking for 10 million of that portion, that can go on down, it's not.
And this is that we're looking for costing on the motion we had last month, which was a good amendment, give us a plan to get us home by 2030 something on, that was Jefferson and Armstrong, but we're motoring away in this part of the city, aren't we? Like this Riverbend, it's 2 different districts, right? It's Riverbend and
Yeah, I think the motion was Jefferson Armstrong, but also Mission. Right?
Thank you. Yes, I knew there was. Thank you. Yes.
So this is for the trunk drainage sewer where the separated sewers, the land drainage water is going into this trunk sewer in this district, right? Or this area.
Yes, and we'll go to the river.
Right, which is similar to the Semple project, which also came in under estimated budget when the bid came in, so. And this new contractor being come to work in Winnipeg, you know, underground is different here than it is in Ontario, but I just want to confirm, we learned some things from previous contracts. Is that kind of information, warnings, so on and so forth, passed on to the new contractor?
Yeah, this is actually a different technology that we'll be using, but certainly we do incorporate our lessons learned from other projects that are similar. We've explained this, this area can have some complicated ground conditions. We actually have worked, the prime people in this company, we've worked with them very successfully on different projects under a different name. So they formed a different company. So they are very familiar with Winnipeg.
Councilor Rollins, did you have a question at all?
No, I'm willing to move.
I had one more question.
Go ahead.
In my own defense here. So when you flip down to item 5 on the agenda, bottom of page 2, there's a line, financing will come from CSO funds, tender 286 2024B, which is the very thing we're debating. 20 for Rutland trunk combined sewer separation work is 33 million below the pre-tender estimate. And well, I'm not a math wizard, it would seem to me 59 versus 38 is not a gap of 33 million.
That's a typo, I believe.
Sorry, what?
That's a type. That's an error. Typo. A type of
Was it?
error, yeah. It's not. It's 20. It's 23.3 million.
23.3, okay.
Yeah.
All right, not 33. Okay. Good catch, Councilor Mays. Do I have a motion from my colleagues?
I think Councilor Owens is
Oh, sorry.
moving this one. Sorry.
So moved.
Yeah, so moved. All right, all those in favor? Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to report number 3.
Yes. This is the it's approval of contract over expenditure number 1 for the Centerport South Interceptor. So this is a sewage interceptor in Centerport work. I just want to point out, like, the terminology over expenditure is not. This essentially is a change order. Over expenditure usually connotes something else, but it's the technical mechanism to do this, to have a change order above the construction. So this is all within the project budget. It's not over budget in any way. It's just that we need permission to adjust their contract to reflect this change in work. So yeah, we've been mentioning this to, the reason we need this, $1.4 million is groundwater. Actually, is that the groundwater conditions out here in this project and the next project you'll see have been higher than anticipated, higher than they were forecasted to be after modeling and monitoring we did on that. And as a result, in this one, it's they had to use different sheet piling in order to make it more practical for the excavation for the interceptor here. So it's an additional $1.4 million on the value of 11.5. So like I said, it's still in budget, but the adjusted contract price will be 12.9. So that's really all there is to this one. It does with this, if this over expenditure is to be approved, the remaining amount in the project budget will leave enough for the next report on the agenda as well. So we're still within project budget.
Right, so what you're saying is, like all these projects that we do, they have a contingency set within them. In order to utilize that contingency, you're coming to us because of the value of the contract, right?
Yes.
That's correct, yeah. So the contingency is on the project, but the awards are on a contract basis.
Yes. Good.
And it's very, I know we often blur the terms, project budget and then contract award. Like contracts are within the overall project budget. So, we're adding to this contract, but we don't have to add to the budget, but we need permission to add to the contract within budget.
All right, questions, colleagues? No. Does somebody want to move that motion? So moved, Councilor Rose, all those in favor? Nobody's opposed, that is carried. Report number 4, which is related to the water service.
Yes, this is the feeder main, water feeder main in Centerport South. Same thing, they're encountering the same kind of groundwater conditions there. This is a change order or over expenditure to help them with the more pumping that was required to keep the dewatering the excavations lower. So this over expenditure is 1.3 million, and the revised total contract cost for this contract would be 12 million after that. And there's still 5.3 million left over in the budget for other change orders going forward.
Yeah,
If this is approved.
hopefully there aren't any, but. Moved by Councilor Mays, yes?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor? Nobody's opposed, that is carried. Now on to the very debatable report number 5 on
Subic.
Budget revision, South End sewage treatment plan. And really what this comes down to is there substantial conformance and the contractor saying they're leaving the site on May 1st.
Well, I just wanna apologize right off the bat here because, we always try to make, it's very hard to kind of plain language some of these things. This may be I think it's being misconstrued here in the public a little bit. What this is we have a contractor that may be leaving before the job is finished. That's not necessarily confirmed yet, but they've indicated they're ready to leave. They're about to leave. We're trying to finish the project. We're trying to support them to finish the project because, of course, we have a contract with them to finish the project. We have money for them to finish the project, but unfortunately, we need to be prepared in case they leave before the project is actually finished. And great points raised in delegation here about like, what do you mean? Don't we have money? Don't we have the money to finish this project? And it is true, we do. But the process for when a contractor leaves a site like this, if they do, they may not. If a contractor walks away from a job and there's outstanding money we have left, we can't access it immediately. We have to hold it while there's a process to sort out exactly what is still owed, exactly what can be paid, this sort of thing. We can't touch the money that is part of this contract until that's sorted out. Also, there's a performance bond with but we required a performance bond here. There's like a CERTI, that's a company that's kind of like an insurance company that would have, $50 million performance bond that has money there to guarantee that the contractor there would be funds available in case this happens where a contractor leaves a job. Again, the CERTI has a process. You can't access that money, the hour the contractor leaves the site, you can't access that money right away. So what this report is doing is trying to get us in a position where we're prepared in case this comes to pass and in case the contractor doesn't finish and they do leave before they're finished. This report is asking, if this report is approved, it will set us up so that we can access money to hire a different contractor to help us bridge the time we need, finish the project. And then when we are able to recover the money that we have for NAC, and the money we would get from the performance bond, that money we would recover. We expect to recover all this money. We expect that, and when this is all said and done, we don't need this $10 million. We will have it recovered from the existing funds and the existing performance bond.
How long does it typically take to, well, I don't know if we've had any of
Yeah, we're not
this
sure.
happen before, but
I'm not sure.
But on the performance bond thing, it's not like going to court though, right? Like this, the process is you get to some
surety, yeah.
agreement that this work was left and we not taking that money, right?
What happens is the insurity will conduct an investigation, and depending on the complexity of it, it depends how long it can take, but these things do take time.
It's gonna be months at least. So what we're trying to do here, and back to the funding point, both these projects, the South End plant project and all our CSO projects are funded by the Environmental Projects Reserve. So when we get an approved budget for these projects so that we can go and issue these contracts, we have to identify a funding source for these approved budgets. And the Environmental Projects Reserve is set up specifically to protect and improve river river water quality. So that's why it covers a lot of our sewage projects, as well as CSO and basement flooding. So it is essentially the same funding source, but it's not the same approved budget. So the idea was, for the next couple months, we have money that was allocated for the Rutland Trunk that we don't need for the Rutland Trunk for the next couple months. So we would point to that as, hey, that's our official, if we get approval with this report, that would be our official source, so that we could, if we have to, in May, June, July, hire a contractor to finish the odds and ends, to finish the training, or maybe help us with standby support and some of this equipment, and get us over the finish line on the South End plant. We'd recover that money. It would go back into the Environmental Projects Reserve and go back into allocation into CSO projects in time for us to use it on the next project that we would have. We don't have a project on the shelf that we don't have a CSO project. We don't have a way to spend that money on a CSO project this month.
Mhm.
So
Actually, I've heard, so we have CSO projects now scheduled out how many years right now that we've gone to, we have contractors doing it, or?
Oh, it'll be probably the next like 7, 8 years once we get the detailed designs complete for Armstrong, and then Mission will be even after that. And we're finishing up Jefferson, we still have Ferry Road, Coburn, so we've got lots of scheduling done for the next number of years. Certainly the next 5-ish years are fully committed.
yeah, our 5-year capital forecast, of that, we've got the $210 million currently allocated. That's fully allocated to projects. It's being used right now. It's spoken for. Again, like the Rutland Trunk, it was $59 million spoken for the Rutland Trunk. Right now, there's 20 million of that we don't need right now for the Rutland Trunk. So it can be a placeholder for us to, while we recover this money. It sounds more complicated than this, but.
Well,
Similar to bridge financing, right? When you're buying a new house and you haven't yet sold your
Right.
house,
good.
you're getting the money.
Yeah, okay, questions, colleagues, or?
I guess, it is a confusing report. On page 5, we've got that the the Rutland trunk was awarded for 33 million below the pre-tender estimate, so it wasn't awarded. We just voted on awarding it, and it wasn't 33 million, so
Should say
Not-
23 million below
well,
and you're
and it wasn't.
correct, it wasn't
We were
awarded.
just voting on whether it was, so I mean, I made various calculations based on that, but
Full disclosure, like, we did really had to put this report together in a hurry because of the notice we got from the contractor was only a few weeks ago. And to get it, we had to get it into this meeting cycle. So I apologize. I mean, this is terrible. There's two typos in that sentence right there with the was awarded and 33, they're both wrong. That's, I'll take responsibility.
okay, I mean, I guess we're still in the asking questions, not the debate phase here, but the others, other CSO awards have come in under budget as well. Maybe not all of them, but certainly I had to dig around with Jefferson East, April of 2020, that came to council. That was under budget, 17 million award on a $22 million estimate. So by and large, are these coming in at or below our, I guess it'll be a class 3 estimate when we go?
This was a class, yes, correct. Some of these are very, like, we haven't done this type of work in many years, so it's difficult. We don't have recent contracts that we can use to estimate, so you have to make a lot of assumptions, when we go forward with our pre-tender estimates. So we do our best, and it's really hard to estimate when somebody may be doing a very aggressive bid. They want to get into the job, into the market. In other circumstances, we've seen that things have come substantially over our pre-tender estimates. So we're in a difficult environment right now for estimating. And then when it's something that we have nothing to compare to, it just adds an extra layer of difficulty.
But I mean, I guess the core of the question here is we have a master plan that says we need to be banging this stuff out at about $90 million a year, and then inflation adjusts that by 3% a year to keep pace, to get us home by 2045, 2047. And yet we sit here and say, well, we can't do any more than there's no capacity to do more than what we're doing, which is some years 45, some years, we're slated to go back down to 30 in the budget. So, and we're told, well, there isn't 75 years worth of work left to do. Well, the plan, Councillor Rollins, is both things can be true at the same time. Actually, these things can't all be true at the same time. You can't have, if there isn't 75 years of work to do, how did we get ahead then? I don't know why I waste my time, frankly, but I do. I ask questions about this. So how can we say to keep pace, we need $90 million a year, inflation adjusted, but we cannot spend more than 45. This stuff doesn't add up.
It's because we're putting too much importance on a hypothetical full program number. The hypothetical number is what's used to calculate the $90 million a year, and it's as you yourself have pointed out, there's contingency in there. There's all sorts of unknowns and this high level estimate for these district plans. That hypothetical number was needed to kind of put a boundary on the plan, but to come back to say that if this year we spend 89 million, next year we spend 91 million to stay on course, that 90 million is based on splitting up that overall hypothetical number. So I would treat that as separate from the 5-year capital, percent capture targets, our individual plans, how we're going to move on mission, finish up Armstrong. Where are we in a real schedule for that in terms of tendering, budgeting as we get closer to the individual districts. So looking at those, we're fully funded for the next 5 years. We're on track to get those 2 large projects done, and we will come back and articulate that in the report as well to try to see where we're, to show where we'll be on how much further that advances us towards that goal. These are huge chunks of our capture target in those districts. And as we mentioned before in other projects, like, you know, the remaining projects are smaller amounts, smaller projects. And as we get further along, we can get a better handle on where we'll be in 5 or 10 years. Certainly that schedule in the master plan still has us committed to 2045.
Yeah,
That's
but
Councillor,
again,
Councillor. Just to follow up on that.
Yeah,
specific-
I mean,
Councillor Rollins wants.
I agree, it would seem to me we need to revisit the $2 billion estimate for the program as a whole, because by building in 100% contingency, you inflate this thing so much it doesn't look like it's feasible. Whereas the actual on the ground, the projects themselves are coming in. Look at this one, it's way under budget. Like we don't need that 100% contingency, I would argue. And it undermines the credibility or the feasibility of the program as a whole. So if we could go back and say, yeah, if we do 45 million a year from here to 2045, we're probably home. We're pretty damn close. I mean, that's a better, more realistic debate than the debate we're having, which is, and it's not me, it's your annual reports are saying, well, we need 90 million a year. And so we're drifting past 2100 now, so not even doing the inflation adjust. So, I mean,
I think,
I'm trying to make the point of final point is I don't really want to borrow 10 million here because I'm not sure when it's coming back. And to Councillor Eadie's credit, we had that vote last month that said, look, just give us the cost estimate on the 3 big ones.
Mhm.
Let's at least if we can get home on those in the 2030s, that's really good work. We should be proud of that. So I don't want to take away from that. It's just if you got 10 million more in the bank, then there's less implication for rate increases because you got 10 million in the bank. Now, to which you're probably going to say, well, stuff.
We'll have the 10 million. Yeah, it's the 10 million staying in the bank for CSOs. It's just that for the next couple months, we need to point to that as a source. Yeah.
Councillor Mays, I think we should. I don't know how long it'll take us to do it, but I think what I'm hearing here is, you know, based on actual experience now, because remember, when we submitted that plan to the province for 85% of reduction of sewage going into the river, like things have really changed. Like that's quite some time ago. And I'm just wondering, we'll ask Mr. Shanks, so is it not reasonable for us to move a motion to ask Water and Waste to come back in a year or whatever, with what is really, let's put, the ratepayers are fed up, right? And if it isn't gonna cost, like, let's figure out what, given the practical experience now, estimate going forward, reaching what we got licensed for in terms of dealing with CSO. Is that a unreasonable request? That's a motion outside of this report.
We do two things. All great points, and I 100% agree. We need to re-communicate and re-articulate what we're doing here in terms of cost. But the report that we do have coming back already, specific to how to get those 2 main CSO projects done, will include some additional context about the whole program for sure, but also we're required to do an update on the master plan by the province.
Yeah, so in
When's that due?
2027, we have a requirement to submit a plan or see how we're doing in terms of the equivalency to a 98% capture. And 2030, we have to do a full relook at our master plan.
But
And the cost estimate and everything?
Correct, and yeah.
So we need to, anyway, what I'm getting at here is, like, actually the question is, we have way more money in the environmental fund for CSO than we're able to spend. So are we actually charging the ratepayers more money and feeding the CSO program still?
We are looking at the CSO program, and over the next little while, we'll be you know, re-looking at all the, like, what funds we have, what do we need, and trying to right-size that budget a little bit. Because we, you know, we do realize that things are coming in differently than we had anticipated. Those
100%
levels of
contingency.
looking at that, they do take a lot of time, right? So they're not quick assessments, so we will be doing that.
I also pointed like the.
All right, we need,
Like,
Get in on
there's-
questions.
I was just gonna say, there's no project being funded at 100% contingency. The rates being set on the 5, even the 10-year program are matched to anticipated cash flow based on our capital forecast. So I know it sounds like a lot of words, but I'm saying that we haven't gathered money based on one of those projects that are 10 years out that have 100% contingency in them. Nobody's paid for that yet. The money we put into the environmental projects would be based on a tighter, what do we need to spend the next 4 years, our best estimates, and we put that money.
we're gonna have a lot of surplus. Okay, Councillor Rollins.
Some foundational questions, because, you know, I have 4 residents that came today. Right on page 3 of the report and implications. It says, and I think fairly plain language, and any reader would go, in Wildwood. The funds in the amount of 10 million will be temporarily transferred, right? From the CSO and basement flood management strategy program, right? So if you are HIJ in Wildwood Park, who just flooded last year, you go, oh God, no. My neighbors in Wildwood Park C are experiencing overland flooding. How does this impact me? And you're saying, perhaps I think that, oh, I wrote the report wrong. We don't mean that. But, you know, they came today to go, please don't. I need some additional funds here.
No, we do need to transfer we need to temporarily get authorization to transfer some budget to another project that we will.
It's not a misunderstanding on my part. My
Right.
question to you is, they're concerned about that. Please respond. They have overland flooding now. They have basement flooding now, and you're proposing to move cash that they need.
But this cash wouldn't be spent on a catch basin.
Right.
It's not.
And that gives rise to the next question, which is, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
They'll say, we need it now. They're saying, Councillor Rollins, I need a fix today. You've been lollygagging since Jenny Gerbazi, right? So they want to have an answer of that today. Why not? Is it because they have, their petitions will be ignored? That's the questions that I'm getting.
So in this case, like, it's not a factor of having an undersized land drainage system. The CV leads freeze sometimes in winter. Public Works comes and thaws them, and you know, it is unfortunate that specifically in back lanes, we do see a lot of problems with CB leads when Public Works does stuff at the back lanes. Sometimes they get installed a bit shallow. It's just it is a shallower area. That is true. Like, they're correct. But it's related to the frozen catch basin, not an undersizing of the system.
And yet we tell them that their sewer work is a necessity first. And that is the fix. We tell them that it is in fact because of infill housing and the system constraints. We tell them on a website the difference between a CSO being very, very large, right? And it need to be replaced. And then I say your asphaltic layer comes later after we've dug in the sewers. So explain that disconnect. And 311 sometimes says the same thing.
Sorry, the disconnects. Can you just repeat
The investments of the sewer, right, in Wildwood, right? And then comes their asphaltic layer back lane, right? Because first we do the work underground and then we have to put the asphaltic lane. And they are told that this is in part a fix. As a matter of fact, we dedicate our whole CSO website explanation of the city of Winnipeg on what this looks like for older houses. We make the connection directly on the Water and Waste website. I can show it to you.
So the back, like when Public Works repaves the back lane.
No,
What-
the investments in the sewer, work in Wildwood come from this fund.
But the issue here is a frozen patch
Correct.
basin, right?
In, I,
Or
I
are you
don't think so.
talking about the differences between combined sewer areas and separate sewer areas?
I'm talking about the budget line that we're proposing 10 million, and there is work in Wildwood, including Wildwood C, that's already in budget, so it wouldn't be taken from Mr. Berman, right? That's underway. So we have several projects underway in Wildwood that was from the 2023-2024 budget fiscal year from this budget line for sewer. We recently did JIH and C is on deck.
So I believe those were back lane paving. So when Public Works,
But hold on, is it in the sewer renewals? Like the sewer renewal projects are paid from a different reserve. That's from the
Correct.
sewer system
Yeah.
rehabilitation reserve. It's a different pot of money.
And it's already in budget, so it wouldn't affect this money,
No.
but the basement flooding, the management strategy for that, they have their hand up and say, what about us?
right, so what you're talking about is the separate sewer basement flooding versus the combined sewer basement flooding. And why are we prioritizing the combined sewer, combined sewer? And the reason for why we're advancing or pushing more in the combined sewer areas is we do have that regulatory requirement where we need to decrease our discharges. So that is a provincial license requirement.
Can I just get clarification though? So Wildwood here, the area that we're talking about, what CSO area is that in? And
It's
is there
not.
CSO problems with,
It's a separate sewer area, counselor. So they have a separate land drainage.
it's a
and
small, like it's its own small,
It's separated.
It's part of the Willow,
it's already,
It's not a
It's already separate.
it's already separated.
oh, it is already.
Yes, and unfortunately, sometimes the back lane catch basins and
Yeah, I get it.
they'll freeze and it's because it's a fairly shallow area.
It freezes a lot easier.
Freezes,
I
yeah.
get it. Okay.
And they get dramatic pictures,
So there's there's no new technology to prevent that freezing, like,
Public Works comes out and thaws them in the spring.
anyway, Councillor Rollins,
Okay.
go ahead.
So, and then the next two questions is, by what mechanisms will the funds be returned? So the timing you point to is the surety, the scope, and the total performance holdback, yet there is no timing with that, and I'll say the timing would be uncertain, because that then becomes a dispute resolution mechanism. So, we're pulling out 10 million, you're saying it'll be replaced. We can't probably possibly tell me about the timing of the replacement of that 10 million.
And that's
Is that
correct, like
fair?
the timing is unknown, I mean, what we are, and again, like this is an eventuality. We are working very, very closely with the contractor to try to complete the contract. This is kind of our, I don't even wanna call it Plan B, this is a worst case scenario, however, it is a 24/7 operating sewage treatment plant that needs to meet license requirements, and we need to plan for these eventualities. We can't just wait for it to happen. And then wait for the mechanisms that will give us the money. We've got the surety, we have a holdback bond. We'll be working with them to de-scope some of the work. So all these things will then free up money for us to put it back into the environmental projects reserve.
And this is in a nutshell, what KPMG study meant when they said this process isn't built for purpose, that the briefing, et cetera, isn't isn't fit for purpose in terms of you know, the size and scope of either the south end or the north end plant and the department's ability. You know, in community services, I was used to John Hall coming. It's just the two of you. It's so thin, this department. It,
There's already folks.
Yes.
On this, where it's
Yes.
not just
Yeah.
Cynthia Deans, but I don't think like this wouldn't necessarily be what the KPMG fit for purpose comments would be, unless I guess I could say part of the there was a recommendation there for a management reserve to have the utility just have a big chunk of money sitting for like kind of like a universal contingency, which we historically, as most utilities do, keep a working capital amount. It's aligned in our budget for you know, a certain percentage of your annual revenues are held for working capital. We use it for things like unanticipated emergency projects, this sort of stuff. The issue is the last few years we've got such enormous rate pressures. Our working capital is down way below where it should be. It's like a 2%. So that's that. We talked about that a little bit during that the audit discussions, but that I could say maybe we would use something like that for this in the past. But right now, given that the money is available in the short term from the same funding source, we felt this was the cleanest way to do this to help us get this project finished.
yeah, and the delegated authority themes in that project and in the KPMG report and the council briefings where we're $10 million off on the map, so the $10 million of the act, right?
But this is a transfer between approved. Oh, okay.
You don't have to respond to that. Okay, so correct in assuming the timing, just not possible to even peg on recouping.
Well, I know what our expectations are. I mean, just that we can't guarantee that we'll be successful. Like our expectations is it's a matter of a few months. Like the process to collect on a performance bond is established in the industry. We just don't have any direct experience with it, and so it's certainly performance bonds. If you can't collect on a performance bond in short order, then there's no point in having it.
Correct.
So our expectations is this will be imminent, but you know, I would say less than that for sure.
Well, I was gonna ask this, anyway, can I finish my story?
Yeah, sorry.
Specifically, I wanna ask this. So in there, 650 deficiencies, list out all that stuff. It's April 11th. Those numbers have probably changed. Do you think it's possible that they can, some deficiencies wouldn't be considered, some of that stuff wouldn't be considered not meeting full compliance or whatever I call that, right? But so please explain to me. I know you're going for the emergency. I think that's good, but what's the reality? Like writing manuals is not a simple thing, right?
And that's correct, Counselor. So maybe one thing I do want to make clear is that we are meeting all our regulatory requirements at the treatment plant right now. So that's, you know, I think that's important part to mention.
Future operations. Right?
Yeah, so the deficiencies, you know, a lot of them are going to be relatively, you know, minor and don't, you know, needs to be painted. We need to finish the sodding, some of those. It's the more critical ones that we're concerned about. So, you know, can they be complete by May 2nd? We don't believe so, right? And we're working with them to try to come up with a more realistic plan while we also do some de-scoping of some work, right? You know, for example, maybe we de-scope, take things out of their contract, it'll decrease the contract price, and then we can hire a different contractor, you know, come back in spring and do the sodding.
Favor?
Well, just trying to
No,
reduce their.
We don't pay them for it,
Like if
right?
you're-
All right, I get it.
Yeah, we'll get somebody else, but we do have a couple critical items on the critical path, and while they don't impact our compliance, what they do impact is our operability. So if you don't have a manual, and you're right, they're not quick to write. You know, it impacts our ability to operate plants, train new staff.
Well, the other problem is there's still a lot of new residential being built out there. Like
And-
all of Waverly West feeds to this plant, right?
And we want a plant that's here, you know, that's not just gonna take us for the next 2 years in reliability. So some of the issues are reliability or impact our operating costs, you know, things like that. So, you know, it is very important for us that these things do get completed. Like, it's not, to leave them doesn't leave us with a plant that, you know, we would like to have.
Okay, so now, if you de-scope some of that work,
Mhm.
are you gonna use part of this $10 million? Not for that work. Not for that work. You're gonna use, what fund are you gonna use for that work?
So when we descope work, let's say we descope 10 items, each at $1, right? That's
Yeah.
$10. That comes off the contract. We then have that money in the
Oh, I
south
see.
end
So it's
upgrade,
already
and then
allocated.
I go to different contractor and say, can you do these 10 items?
Like, it's gonna come in, it's not gonna come in as cheap as you
And it may
got the
not.
bids, like, well, they won this bid in what, 2021 or?
2018 with them.
18.
Yeah, way
Yeah,
back,
no,
right?
it's super late. I mean, this is super late. It's terrible.
Yeah.
We do have holdback, like they have not been paid. There's a holdback, there's some, there's a lot of money in holdback, that is available if, once this is all sorted out, it's
Mhm.
available for us to finish the project. Our point is that it's gonna take a few months to sort it out. So if they leave, we're left holding the bag where we don't
No, I
have funds to use. That's it.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, so no further questions, colleagues?
Why is the contractor isn't named here? Is that legal? Is that strategic? Why?
It's not strategic. I think we've mentioned it publicly in a number of locations. It's NAC, North American Contractors. Just how the report was written.
That was the debate back then, the Council Mease, as you remember.
All too well.
Mhm. All right, I think we're at a position now, I don't think they can describe much more about it. Do either of you want to move the recommendation or?
I do not actually, I'm not prepared to support.
Well, okay, so Council, I'm gonna ask you, Councilor Mays, to take the chair. I'm gonna move this. Okay. So I'm moving the recommendation of the public service on this, acknowledging that there was the dollar error in terms, it's only 23 million, not 33 million. But we need to ensure that this South End Water Pollution Treatment Center, Control Center, has the capability to meet the needs of our licensor as well as the people in the South area that this serves, because if it doesn't start serving it and operationally, if it goes awry, we're gonna have big problems and we don't want that. So therefore, I'm moving this recommendation, the recommendations of public service on this.
Councilor Reedy, Councilor Rollins, any comments?
So, I mean, I'm uncomfortable that the report comes, with, you know, the public service first words of apology when, and where, you know, where plain language might be the factor, or could be math that isn't quite correct. The briefings, in terms of moving money around, the allocations, taking the allocation, and then the language related to the contractor. Related to, the contractor in other meetings, there have been some closed counter elements to a report with language that's in here. So taken together, with some concerns about, you know, the implicit recommendation that the money will be recovered, but no necessarily mechanism on timing, or options, taken together with the language around, the contractor leaving, it is a hodgepodge of issues to which, I have a lot of sympathy that the department's just saying, I need the flexibility to keep pace with the project, the Southern project. But taken together with the language in the report, the issues on contractor defaults, and I have a lot of sympathy about the risk of not completing the scope of work. But it seems ironic to rob from the very funds that Winnipeggers really are feeling that they need now, to without a replacement of them, and then to not have any surety of the timing, and then a whole separate issue that feels like it's not really worked out here. We don't have Lisa Roswell on the line, I imagine. We don't have our CFO equivalent here, so I think for all of those reasons, I can't support the recommendation at this time. I could see a layover. I understand time is of the essence too, but I'm afraid I can't support the report.
Yeah, I'm
I
not,
want to.
I kind of share many of those concerns. A layover would be, we could do that, but that would be very problematic on the ground, I would think. So, I'll let EPC do what they choose to do, but I'm not gonna sit here and be told we're half a century, our estimated completion of this project is half a century after the deadline. B, we've been saying for years, we need provincial and federal money to get up to speed on this program. C, we never asked for federal or provincial money. So we trundle along at 30 to 45 million, saying we need 90. Then we get to this point and we're told, oh, we have a surplus and no way to spend it, so let's use it for this other program. Something isn't adding up here. Something needs to be clarified on this program. I've spent a lot of time and air on it over the years. So it's a $1 billion program. We need to have some clarity on if we're a half a century behind on our estimated completion date, then why would we be taking the money and moving it elsewhere, even short term? Why wouldn't we pour some more money into design? Even if you accept that, oh, we can't get it out the door on construction work, well, we could speed up design then, presumably. So this needs to be, Councillor, I think some of your comments make sense. Like this needs to be reworked into, hey, we don't need 90, we only need 45. We only need 45 to this point, and then we're more or less done. Okay, well then people will take it seriously, because no one's taking it seriously right now. It's gonna, outlive our children's children at this rate to get, or there's the risk that it never gets finished because the pipe length, the lifetime of the pipe is like 70 years. And by the time you get to the finish line, the starting stuff is already out of date. Like this is unbelievable. So no, I'm not prepared to support this. It'll probably come forward in some fashion out of EPC, but we do need to get our act together on how we are costing this. So I'll call the question then. All in favor of Councillor Edie's motion?
Aye.
And all opposed? Nay. So that is, yeah.
Councillor Rowland's report.
So we didn't lay it over, so it'll move forward with that recommendation.
This, okay, over, it's an emergency.
Yeah.
All right, so it goes with a negative recommendation to EPC, is that right, Mr. Harris?
So do without recommendation.
Without recommendation, yep. Okay, I'm suggesting we go on, the next report is quite simple.
Yep.
And then after that report, I propose that we take a 10-minute break, if that's okay with my colleagues.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fine by me.
All right. Okay, so report number 6 is,
Agreement for
quick,
services.
no, Mr. Schiff.
Yeah, sorry, it's a proposed agreement for services for wastewater sewer works at 868 Region Avenue West. I think we've had one of these types of reports for every meeting for the last couple of meetings where we need authority, we need approval to enter into an agreement with a proponent that needs to do some upgrades at sewer upgrades. They need to upsize, I think, a sewer, this is for the car wash.
It's for the car wash, yeah, and they just need to install sewer at a steeper slope.
Local improvement, right?
Yes.
Really. Okay, moved by Councillor Rollins, all in favor? Nobody's opposed, that is carried. 10-minute break. Calling the meeting of the Water, Waste and Environment Committee back to order. We're on report item number 7. This is this is a report on having a central place for developers to call to find out about any sewage capacity issues and so on. And if I'm correct, P&D no longer has pre-applications for those bigger projects and that, and it seems that this is a way to go. Other cities operate this way. So if you want to present the report.
Absolutely, you're totally correct. This is the rapid response process for water and wastewater servicing capacity inquiries. It's actually, the lineage of this project is a little complicated. You're totally correct. Big part of this is that last year when the pre-app process at property planning was discontinued, we were directed to come up with a replacement process specific to water and waste servicing inquiries that replaced that functionality that the pre-app process had before. So that's a big part of this project. The other part of the project and why it's combined with this other part of the project is that we had a few years ago now, I guess it's a few years ago, put out this work on reviewing how we communicate capacities for service inquiries to developers. It was the water and wastewater servicing capacity study. We spoke about it several times in committee. That's been completed. That's done. That's one of the appendices to this report. And so there is an overlap there because that study was looking at mapping our process, what information we have, how we give it, how we communicate with proponents, also mapping what other cities do, what are industry best practices, trying to identify what things can we do to get better. How can we better serve the development community like that? How can we be more efficient with our information? And where can we focus on things like regional sewer models and that sort of thing? So that report had a lot of recommendations that overlap with what our marching orders to get a replacement for the rapid response process. So it's combined. It's a big report. There's a very lengthy appendices here because we did include the whole study from the consultant, includes comments on the workshops they did with developers and the reviews they did with other cities. So like I said, there's a lot of information in there. I'll try to hit the highlights and do this in a timely manner. But basically, big points gathered from the industry scan. First off, there was some talk previously about having a publicly available map that just showed real-time capacity constraints. That doesn't really exist in the industry. There are variations of that. The recommendation here is that we don't do a real-time map like that. It's not cost-effective or practical, but having a calibrated regional sewer district model would be very beneficial, where we look at larger sewer districts to kind of help guide development, and maybe some targeted servicing modeling in areas priority areas as prioritized by council's policies. So we do have some work going forward on that. That's in that study. The other big thing, we are very, very, very under-resourced in this area compared to other cities. I know that sounds like a trope, but really, if you can look at the breakdown provided in this report, we are, and it's not just a per capita basis that we're under-resourced. We're under-resourced like in terms of absolute numbers too. If you look at Appendix A, for example, it's on page 15, where it really looks at we have about 10 staff who were involved in reviewing servicing applications here in water and waste. And they're not dedicated to that function. They do other functions while this is one of their duties. Compare that to other cities, even cities smaller than us. Regina has more than twice as many people doing that. Ottawa, sort of comparable size, 100 people doing that. It's very, we're very much under-resourced in compared to our peers here.
But one has to ask why Indianapolis is the next city on
the consultant did recommend like a larger list of people. You can see in the questionnaire they put out. Some of it was based on part of the consultant team is Stantec. They do a lot of work on land development across the country, but also internationally. So they kind of came up with a list of people and contacts that they would try to get some information on. So that's kind of guided where we looked.
I'd point out that Indianapolis was always referred to by Mayor Murray back in the turn of the century.
You might also notice, I know like West Fargo, why is West Fargo on there tiny? It was offered as an example through the workshopping as a that they had a great system. We should see, what do they do? Granted, it's a lot smaller, but it's included there for completeness. Right. So with that, they also refer to the 2022 municipal benchmarking study that was done by the Canadian Home Builders Association. That's the last time we participated with data. I would just like to say that home buildings, the 2022 study, we actually punch pretty high above our weight considering we're so under-resourced. I thought that was a good validation for the 2022 numbers. So in terms of turnaround time for approvals, we ranked quite high out of 22 municipalities. We were number 4. So that's good. But anyway, we still have to improve here. So that's the industry scan. The results of this report, we'll talk about our rapid response process. Basically, currently our timelines at water and waste, this isn't the overall timelines for an application, but the timelines for water and waste turnaround on servicing inquiries currently is about 30 calendar days. We take about a month. We want to shorten that. Our plan here, the recommendation is we want to establish a 7-day level of service for standard kind of inquiries so that we turn around in a week. If it's a more complicated inquiry, we're going to try for 14 days. That's what we would set up. To do that, to get the 7-day and 14-day level of service, we're going to standardize the intake process. It's going to take us a couple months, but we're going to standardize this intake process so that the requests all come through a certain, a single point of contact. I know that kind of sounds, that could raise some flags for people. It sounds like funneling. How is that speeding things up if funneling? Actually, it really helps standardize and triage this stuff appropriately. Right now, we can get requests from developers directly to staff members by email. We can get phone calls. We can get some through an official process, some through unofficial process. It comes all over the place. And by centralizing it, we can triage it appropriately and say, okay, hey, this is a complicated one. It has to go to more senior staff. These are simple. These go straight forward. We should have a quick turnaround. And these are a priority. These need to be bumped, this sort of thing. We want to triage it that way. So number one, centralize the intake process. Number two is we've got to add some resources, obviously. So this report here is asking for approval for actually 8 more FTEs, but 4 FTEs specific to this rapid response process.
26.
25 this year. The financial impact here is prorated to reflect that it would be, the last few months of 2025 that we'd actually have these salary costs because it would take us time to hire. But it is asking for 8 FTEs this year. It's referring future FTE requests to future years. Gets a little complicated. tried to put it in a table in here, but I just want to talk about the rapid response process first here. So it's centralize the intake, add some staff, and also establish a fee for inquiries. There would maybe be different fees in the future to match what other cities do in terms of service and developments, different types of fees for different functions. But right now, asking for a servicing inquiry should come with a fee. Pretty much everybody else does that. It helps filter out, it gets us to serious inquiries so that we can focus our resources on realistic developments. So the service inquiry fee we're looking for will be $220 per request. It doesn't come in a vacuum. We do want to set up, a form, basically, the more complete of a question we can get, the quicker we can get an answer. So part of the marching orders we have here that don't require council authorization are outreach we're going to do with the development community, basically training our staff, but also training developers. Some of the developers that do a lot of this work know what we're looking for and they get us information quickly. Not every developer does a lot of work in Winnipeg, so sometimes there's some back and forth. We spend time back and forth getting the right information, that sort of thing. So part of that onus is on us to be more clear about what we need and get that out there and get the community trained on it. So that's the rapid response thing. Long term, for the other recommendations in the consultant report, we're looking to add, it's a total of 13 folks over the next 4 years. That includes the 8 we're talking about this year. Some of these positions are more specific to hydraulic modeling for wastewater capacity and on a regional model, and other senior positions there. So those are staged over the next few years. They're referred to the budget process, so that's not just a referral to the budget process here for the rest of those FTEs. The breakdowns on page 7 and 8 here. Sorry, page 11.
Page 11 is what you,
in the PDF here. Where we, what these positions would do, like I said, there's some senior subject matter engineers we need to put in there. There's servicing study support engineer, basically a project coordinator that would help kind of quarterback some of these more complicated ones, and hydraulic modeler, that sort of thing. That table on the page is trying to show you that the rapid response engineers, 4 of them, we need them this year. We need 3 of those positions for 3 more positions for senior subject matter experts. We'd like to get approval this year, and the hydraulic modeling engineer we'd like to get started on that this year as well. The remaining 5 positions are in 2027 and then in 2029. So it's a big ask. It's a huge number of additional staff. It's a big change for us, but we believe this is necessary. We want to do this to get those new service levels, deliver on them. We do see that our, we're expecting a lot more applications, a lot more growth, a lot more development. The historical population has been changing differently than forecasted through COVID. We had the bump. So we definitely see that we are only going to get busier in this area, and we really need to staff up to even staff up to match what our peer cities have. So it is a big ask for sure, but we believe this is important and aligns with the city's strategic goals. So that's the summary of the report.
And I just want to point out, so the initial is 220 for permit fee.
for an inquiry, not for.
That's I'm just getting into this. You're looking in the future, there may be higher fees, like that's a pretty low fee. But when you get into the more complex things, you're looking at more correlated cost fee for a developer to pay if it's more complex.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Appendix C includes the technical memo we got from the consultant, doing a scan of what other fees are existing and what fees do they recommend. And so to your point, this is an engineering service capacity search fee. That's $220. The consultant was recommending a planning application review fee in the future of $1,000 to $3,000, depending on the actual costs. We're not ready to implement that yet. We're not set up to do that. And then maybe a detailed engineering review fee that many municipalities use, and that will be based more so on the size of the development, like it could be a per hectare cost per thing. Again, we're not asking for that right now. We don't have the staff here yet. We don't have anything set up, so that would be a future new fee approval, maybe in 2026.
Okay, now, we focused a lot over the long time now on all these capital projects, so 220 is not gonna be enough to cover off the cost, so this is an operating, this is operations, so
Yep.
The bill payers that pay the portion for operating, what is this gonna do? And are we gonna be raising the rate for operations in order to cover off the cost initially anyway?
No, so initially, so the impact for 2020, yeah, I mean, ultimately, yes, this would be covered by rates, water rates. You know, as an operating fee or as an operating budget item like salaries.
Yeah, you have an item on the bill for operations, right?
Yes, and so this would be like that $220, you know, we expect maybe that should cover about 200 applications for the rest of the year if it's implemented in July, as we're requesting. So that's about $44,000 for 2025. And if you compare that to the request for the budget application, the budget impact for these FTEs we're asking for, that's about $480,000 for 2025. So the net is about $430,000. Again, the approval for those salary positions gets us the ability to start recruiting for it. That money doesn't actually, we don't pay anybody until they actually get into the role. So, you know, will we get everybody right away before the end of the year? I probably not, but we want to be, we would like to try.
So our rates are set for 2025, so you're gonna look for internal means in operations to cover off the cost. I just wanted, before I turn it over, just wanted to ask, are all of these positions WAPSO, or there's some QP positions there?
These are all WAPSO.
They're all WAPSO, including the, yeah, like who's doing intake? That's a QP job, right? Like who's taking the call?
Right now, we do have technologists that work on the intake, and it's an email box that's monitored by staff. And then it'll be pushed out from there. But see, what happens right now is it comes in, and then it has to go to each of our separate branches. So it has to go to water, it has to go to wastewater, it has to go to land drainage. And every time, you know, an inquiry passes to another hand, it takes time. So our goal here is that it comes into one person, and that one person has the knowledge on water, sewer, land drainage capacity for all the regular type reports, and they can do it right there without having to disseminate it, collect, come back, you know, amalgamate comments, yeah.
Okay,
Councilor Rollins, that's not.
yeah, go ahead, Councilor Rollins.
I do think it's a difficult talker when the sequencing of staffing and the fee isn't really connected. We initiate a fee, but there isn't actually any value for service, and we're nowhere near the other comparable cities in terms of staffing in this that we're putting forward. That's a comment, and you can comment on that if you wish, but in the main, there are other questions with respect to the priorities. You know, you'll get a yes for me on staff, but the questions I have are with respect to number 4 on page 5 of the appendix of the servicing study. You know, which priority responds to that? With respect to what we heard from others concerning the recommendations, and similar the questions on number 8, 9, and 10 around serviceability studies. what, you know, there was a sense that we needed a heat map of sorts. There is some language that if I'm Counselor Mays, I'm going to, in this report, I'm going to use it when we discuss infill coming up on 2s, 3s, and 4s. Because, you know, door to door, let's, for instance, Wildwood, my residents are told all the time that the flooding is because of service capacity and we've built too many houses in Fort Garry by city staff. So, and then you've got paragraphs in here that if I'm a city staff or just a resident, I'm concerned with, right? In terms of Appendix B, water and wastewater servicing studies. So I'm wondering if you can comment on where in your report you're responding to those priorities, number 4, 8, 9, and 10.
So you're talking about the table on page EI there, in the, like where they talk about recommending serviceability studies is number 9, recommendation number 9, right? That's what.
That's exactly right.
So part of this is some of these recommendations, first off, are don't need council approval in terms of like stakeholder engagement.
Which
You know,
one?
like recommendation number,
Is it like 9 or 8? Which one are you speaking to?
I was recommending to number 7. And even number 8, like where we model that kind of stuff, doesn't necessarily need to do that. Although we would have to, through the consultant assignment, that we would need to do that. That would come through the normal award process.
Barely hear you. Sorry, because you're competing with.
Yes. Sorry.
So I can't really hear you. You're speaking to number 7?
7 and 8, I was saying, are examples of things that wouldn't necessarily need to be, that we would need council direction or authorization for. We can.
Yeah, you can always engage industry.
Yeah. So the serviceability studies where we talk about trying to target them concurrently with policy approvals, that obviously requires guidance, cross-departmental guidance, like what area would we want to do that in, that sort of thing. But I think to the overall point, the admin report before you, like the things we absolutely do need permission to do is add FTEs to an establishment and have that and implement new fees. So Yep.
I'm really asking you to respond because I'm interested. I appreciate that's what you need out of us, but I was the former chair of property development. And so this subject is of interest. So I appreciate you're saying, well, this is what I need out of it. I want you to just kind of reach a bit citywide in the issue about infill and development and delays, because you're briefing me as if you know what you need and what you want out of council. But I really want you to take a step back and talk about the issue related to serviceability studies. They want it because they want to know where to build safely and expeditiously. And the recommendation is allocate $2 million toward a serviceability study. You're saying we can do that. Are you saying you will do that then, and where?
I apologize, Councillor. I was answering the question of why we didn't speak to these in the report. The admin report doesn't have to speak to these because the admin report's just asking for the stat. I totally apologize. I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I want to get to what folks want though out there. And so I do want the stuff. No questions about it. I thought I framed that with, I thought I framed that. But in terms of other things that industry want, if industry is listening to this conversation now,
Yes.
they're not hearing or seeing how this responds. So I'd like you to speak to that.
What they want is, so the rapid response, right? What we have heard loudly and clearly from development is they want quick and clear and transparent answers. And that will come from having a rapid response process. So having more boots on the ground so that they can send an inquiry in to Water and Waste and we can get them a quick answer. So right now, Tim,
I don't want us to argue about the staffing model.
yeah, but that's
saying
what industry
number
wants.
8 is about a servicing study. They also want the details on where servicing is at risk, right? So that they have certainty in development. Because our staff, rightly or wrongly, are going door to door when there's a flooding incident and saying, actually, it's because nobody should be developing in Fort Garry. It's a floodplain, everybody, and we don't have the capacity. And so rightly or wrongly, door to door, my residents are hearing that right now. And then they see me approve an infill and they say, she's the problem. And moreover, we don't have a servicing study in Fort Garry to be able to effectively say, is that the problem? And they want one because we want to develop on a corridor, which is Pembina, and sometimes we are encountering. We want to develop on a corridor that is Portage, and that absolutely is a servicing hole that you cannot develop because there is no pipe. Polo Park, you know, on and on. And so could you respond to item number 9 on serviceability vis-a-vis, you know, you say you don't need this authority, so there is point to talking about it still because people in industry want it.
And that's very true, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to do more of that. And right now we're limited in capacity
But
in
yet-
how we can do the servicing.
Okay, but you're not, so you're saying, well, we don't need your authority to do this.
We don't, once we
But
need,
you're also saying we don't have $1 million to do that study?
No, what I think what we're trying to say is, and I'm starting, I think I understand what you're asking, like, the report for our presentation here today, like, we haven't identified what area we want to spend a consulting report on next year to revise modeling of a sewer catchment. We haven't determined that yet. But I think to help, I'm trying to help you allay your concerns, but the serviceability studies we would do on with consultation with other departments, with industry, and it would be a high level study. Like, we're not necessarily, like, the idea of saying this lot here has this capacity now and forever, anybody can come and build on it. We'll never get there. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, you've already gotten there though.
So-
I don't understand why you would say that.
So
You
just-
can't develop along Portage.
Let me ask you this question.
Honestly, you do not get my questions answered.
Well,
Mr. Chair,
I'm gonna try to help you, Councillor Rollins, in that I'm gonna ask a question. How are the new employees going to be able to deal with say the particular area which Councillor Rollins is talking about? Right? No, because that's what it comes down to, right?
You're not paraphrasing my question at all.
Okay.
He was answering it in.
I don't know.
So every lot, the capacity, the water and sewer capacity available to every property at any given time is a snapshot in time. Somebody develops beside you, then your number's no good anymore. You know, it's a moving target. So part of what the industry does, you know, or part of what we would like to have our regional catchments better calibrated, so that we can target areas where there's, you know, larger kind of strategic problems, but also so that's a starting point for when a developer approaches us to say, hey, I have an idea about this lot here. This is what I'm proposing to build on it, and this is where I want it to be built, and this is when I'm going to build it. That they have more information at a starting point to analyze what needs to be done to make that happen. Maybe it can happen, maybe it can't. But we certainly can't. We're not saying that there's nowhere you can develop on Pembina Highway right now. There are places you can. Depends on what you want to develop. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, like the recommendation 9 here, how we are going to act on it is look to work into our next budget cycle, put some funding towards some of these serviceability studies. Which areas will obviously review with other departments and engage with the industry. We do meet regularly with several representations of industry groups to try to get input on how things are going, where their pain points are, that sort of thing. So that certainly is what we are doing outside of this admin report, if that helps.
And then final question, how are you being incorporated, or this study is being incorporated, or your report into the end-to-end permitting review and those associated timelines?
That's a great question. I believe that's kicking off. Has kicked off, I think.
It has kicked
Yeah.
off, yes, and we do have staff that are working with Public Works. Sorry, PP&D on that and being engaged.
So our part would be.
Question is how? How
don't
is
have,
that?
yeah, I don't have all the details of that. I do know that they're being consulted on.
It is some irony that you're putting forward staff and you're under-resourced, as are they.
Mhm.
It is. But you don't have answers on that, which is fair.
I don't, it's staff will, I just don't have it. right now.
Like, part of, one of the deliverables we had here was like a mapping of our internal processes. It's actually a bunch of lengthy charts in terms of process and organization for what, specific to the water and waste part of it, right? So it's not, the appendix B there doesn't have much for other departments. But in terms of that end-to-end review, this certainly has a lot of material that we can turn over right away as a starting point on what goes on in water waste part of it when we have the ball. And so I'd like to think we're in pretty good shape to help with that overall study.
I think in terms of a recommendation, Mr. Chair, I'm interested in moving the whole kit and caboodle 1 to 6, but adding a 4 component that the report be sent to property and development for information.
They are aware of it, just so
I'm sure they are. I want the committee,
for sure.
yeah, who get to decide about their relative FTE complement and the end-to-end review.
To your consideration. Counselor Mays, you have a question?
Yeah, probably just one. Well, maybe two. So when these folks are hired, we're not gonna have the map that everyone always wanted of, I'm sorry.
That counselor, I apologize.
So we're not gonna have the map showing how much room is left block by block, but when these folks are hired, somebody buys a property on the north side of Belleville Road in St. Vital, they could then come, or maybe they put in an offer to purchase with pending an answer, so then they could call up and say, look, within X number of days, can you tell me, is there,
Is there capacity?
while this thing is zoned for me to build 4 units, do I have, how much room is there left in the pipe? Okay. How do we, is there any, maybe more question that I should have asked earlier, but so we're setting aside 12 million bucks if the federal government continues to fund it from the Housing Accelerator Fund for infrastructure work in 2026. There's a whole spine of properties that are eligible. I'm wondering how, if we can't get more than, we're having trouble spending more than 30 million because of industry capacity, so now we're gonna compete with ourselves by putting another separate 12 million in. But how does that, is that gonna relate at all to this? Do you get, like, you're just in the queue with everybody else if you own one of these? I go to buy 1102 St. Mary's Road, I know it's just inside the CSO district, I don't know. Maybe I can build a 10-story building, maybe I can build 1 unit, I don't know, so I'm gonna ask you guys. So does no implications for this half money?
There, that is a very good question, and we have done, for the half properties, there's already been a lot of work done on what, like some of the pre-work into what can and can't be serviced. There certainly is a priority on the half funding, and hopefully these things can run in parallel, right? Like right now we have the same staff that are dedicated to everything, the same few. So if we can get dedicated staff for the rapid response, now our subject matter experts, so the half ones are usually also a little more complicated. So we can now take the workload, for these standard inquiries off of staff with the higher expertise, and they can focus and be much more dedicated on things like half.
I'm a little troubled this is coming in just after budget and just after a rate report, and now we've got budget implications and rate report implications, though for this year, we're just funding it out of
Existing
retained earnings.
Except the fee would come into force July 1st, 2025. So it is exactly what you've stated.
But the service benefit of the fee is not completely confined to these new staff. Even just managing the intake of, like, if we could filter some of the questions that we get now, that helps the existing staffing we have right now. It helps with their workload. So the sooner we get a fee in, the sooner we get that part of the benefit. We will have to do, that balances off with, the fee is gonna come with the service level agreement. We're gonna, we're gonna commit to that 7-day turnaround. So it will be a squeeze for us to have a fee and that service level while we're trying to hire these staff.
Well, you won't have the service level, you'll just augment fees, and your rationale for the fee is to, if I'm paraphrasing, make sure that they're serious inquiries. Yet there is no data presented on the less serious inquiries that you get.
And it's also meant for some partial cost recovery for these new FTEs.
To get some money in the bank before the service level increases.
It's going to take time, like, we'll hire the staff and it will take time, to train everybody up, right? That is a reality, but even just by having more people right away, we'll be able to do things faster.
Can't hear you, Councillor Rollins.
They're not getting the people right away. The fee will be instituted July 1st. The fees will go up. These are fees that other governments are going to characterize as egregious. One's running right now, and there is no additional service being provided other than the assumption that there is no data to support that there are less serious inquiries that the fee would sort out, because you won't be paying $250 unless you ask an uber precise question, which is a frustration.
Yeah.
It's a difficult talker. I'm prepared to move. I moved a motion, but I do think that's a difficult talker.
If it helps, the workshopping we've done and the feedback we've got from developers is that they want a fee in place. They want this 7-day thing. They're completely happy with it. We are clearly an anomaly for not charging the fee in the first place.
Yeah.
And so the level of service that we're already providing, we're doing at this loss. So there is buy-in from the industry on this.
For the 7-day turnaround, which you cannot do without staff.
And for the fee.
Right. The fee comes first, and 7 days may or may not come until 2027, depending on the staff level.
Our first step is to get approval to chase these FTEs and get some people in there.
Just for clarification too, so I'm a new developer. If I go to the P&D, hopefully tells you everything you need to do to get something going. Just to confirm, so water and waste, the email contact that you're talking about, that's described there as to what you need to contact them for.
It will be, this is like, you'd think by now I would know this offhand what it is.
I mean, yes, it's there. It's there.
But does it say, okay, we send an email to this address and this is why you make a request to find out what, right? I'm just talking about new developers, right? Like,
We will definitely ensure, that it's part of the PP&D webpage as well for that. It does, their webpage does currently direct to water and waste.
is that email address? Doesn't say call 311. Sorry.
I'll find out. I believe it does. I just want to be.
I hope it doesn't say call 311. Anyway, all right. Or email or whatever. Well, no, 311 doesn't take email anymore, right? Anyway,
One question,
yes,
final question
Councillor
from me, I
Mason.
think. So how is this better than the pre-app process? I asked that in honor of Councillor Orlico, who sort of was amazed, I think, that the pre-app process, which was meant to avoid these pitfalls, we eliminated it to streamline everything. So now we have this process. How is this different than the pre-app?
From a water and waste
Yes, from a water
standpoint, this is going to act like the pre-app, where they can reach out to us, like before the PP&D could say, this is more complicated, you must do a pre-app, in which case then, Water and Waste will be consulted with, that has gone by the wayside, so this is going to function like that to ensure that the developers have the correct information early on. And that they're not proceeding without that.
Okay, thank you.
And just to answer your question, Councillor Edie, it's not currently on the PP&D website, however, the planners are aware of it and they do pass on the contact information email address, and there are plans to update the website and get it up.
Any other questions? No? Somebody moving a motion?
I believe I moved a motion about 20 minutes ago. Items, I suggested that I would move items 1 to 5 with another item number 6 reordered, that it move more information to property and development, and then reordered to number 7 be the proper officers.
So just to make sure I'm understanding the intent, is that this full report be provided for information to, thank you.
Yeah, so that it would just appear on agenda P&D.
To the Director of Property and Development?
No, not to the director, to the
Oh,
committee.
to the standing
Standing
policy, okay. And there are recommendations. You said there's recommendations 8 and 9, or those are just? I don't. Oh, okay. All right. So we have an amending motion. I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Moving on to the most interesting report. In terms of yard waste collection coming inside Woodbury. Maybe the department wants to speak to the motion first, or would Councillor Mays like to speak to it first? It's coming from Councillor Mays.
Sure, the wording could be perhaps a little clear, but we got in between the different zones and the tie vote and what was, things were defeated and approved anyway. The gist of it is, okay, if you had a report that said it would be more expensive to bring garbage or recycle, it was just garbage in-house in this zone, while the same report says it's cheaper to do leaf and yard waste in this zone in-house. So why don't we rely on that? Now, as is often the case here, there's some nuance to that. So there were some costs in that report that weren't allocated out between garbage, recycling, and leaf and yard waste. And leaf and yard waste is the much smaller in cost service of those three, but it would be not dead accurate to say, okay, staff at 4.2 million in-house, 6.1 contracted out. There is some overhead, for lack of a better term, admin costs, garage costs that would have to be allocated out. Not enough to reverse the numbers, I would say, but it would be useful to get an updated study that would look at how do we allocate that out. And it would be useful to get, and I'm happy to move this, a study that say, okay, we looked at one zone, why don't we look at the whole city? Is it cheaper to do it across the whole city? Because that would be a more useful debate, I think, than just debating about one zone. So we do have, I just went back through old agendas. So, the last time we did the 7-year award, we voted on it in October of 16 to start October of 17. And that was viewed as a little tight, giving only a year advance notice. But clearly it had gone out to tender prior to October to get to a recommendation. So we're now looking at Jan 31, 2027 expiry, I think. So long way of saying this thing will probably go out to tender in the fall, I would think. So before then, if leaf and yard waste isn't going to be included in the tendering documents, we need to have that vote by July, I would guesstimate. And there are reasons to leave it out, least reasons put it in, it's interrelated with the compost pickup, et cetera, but long and short of it, I would like to see a 60 days, come back with a review of fully, allocating all of the costs that you can. Would it be, what's the leaf and yard waste cost citywide and in the one zone? As compared, doing it in-house as compared to contracted out. I would assume we would use the same basic numbers for the contracted out stuff that we did before.
Response?
Yeah, we can.
Or Mr. Gordon?
We can certainly, Counselor, you're correct, the line item in that table in the previous report was kind of an incremental cost for leaf and yard waste. It didn't include the admin or facility cost, some fraction of which would be required for leaf and yard waste on its own. We can go back and specifically look at that question, leaf and yard waste on its own, or on its own, brought in-house for a zone, brought in-house for the whole city. We can try to crunch those numbers. Yeah, 60, hopefully we can get 60 days.
Councilor Rose, did you have a question?
Not yet.
Okay, so we have private contractors delivering all of this services. So there's a contract administrator position, which is part of admin. If you brought it in-house, you wouldn't be allocating contract administrator costs to in-house service delivery. Would you?
No, I mean, your point is correct. The contract administration that we have currently, but if we were looking at leaf and yard waste, there's still the garbage collection and recycling collection contract administration. This we would try to, like the costing in the 2024 report had like a 4-person and supervisor and clerical support, that sort of thing allocated to as its own line item on that chart to cover supervision for garbage, recycling, and leaf and yard waste. So what we would do, what I'm hearing we would need to do is look at how much of that, like what would we need if we just needed a 4-person for leaf and yard waste on its own kind of thing.
So, and just for more clarification, like we're gonna move a motion, you'll get these details, but I want to get this out here. So, we have a number of staff who go out and inspect situations. For example, somebody, I don't know, says a contractor made a mess. Like we have solid waste on the street, people investigating a bunch of stuff, right?
Yes.
So I don't know if those staff are overwhelmed or not, but those are city workers, right?
Yeah, and I think I get where you're can we add this to an existing? Can we add some of this administrative duties to an existing position?
Yeah, rather than you're saying you're gonna have to hire this many, whatever.
We could certainly look at that as part of the analysis for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to comment offhand.
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
I've had to put business plans together in my life, so. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that a little bit, and also the other thing is now I don't know what department owns the vehicles. But what would be good to know is, what vehicles do we already have that can actually deliver yard waste, leaf and yard waste pickup? Now it might be in public works, I don't know. Nobody wanted to consolidate garbage collection, which they should have. Just, the argument was just ridiculous. From my chairperson's perspective, I was trying to
Come back to that.
Well, no, I know, you know, there's efficiencies to be made on the actual collection. I'm not talking about cleaning up litter in parks. I'm talking about collecting the garbage, right? Anyway.
I can confirm that the water and waste doesn't currently have any trucks that could do this, but I couldn't speak for, I would assume.
I would like to see an evaluation about what Public Works owns because I know they move leaves and stuff around themselves, right? So, anyway, anyway, 60 days is enough, you figure?
Well, I mean, 90 would be better, but I can.
But those contracts are going out in.
Yeah, I don't have a firm answer right now on what's the drop dead date for the contract, but we could aim for 60, and if I need an extension, I'd be back.
Yeah, if you're not going out to tender 90, then yeah.
Okay,
Good.
so you're moving,
Yeah, I'll move that and it's just the collection we're talking about here, like not, like you're already, whoever at Brady, when the truck's dumped, that person's already City of Winnipeg stuff. Okay, so collection.
one of
And can we get, in whatever report comes back, can we clarify what is the wage rate being used as, or what, I mean, we've got people working golf courses seasonally. Are they part of the pension plan? I don't know. Do they get, various benefits? I don't know, to be honest, but there's obviously some provision in the QP collective agreement where you could have seasonal work, I think. So if we can sort of incorporate into the study or let us know what assumptions are used in such a cost and study, that would be a benefit.
one other point to make. Actually, I'm gonna ask for a meeting with you and Mr. Gordichuk. Like when we go to, in the future, there's plans to go to curbside compost pickup, right? So, is leaf and yard waste gonna be part of composting or like that, wood is a different kind of composting operation than composting, food waste. Anyway, it would be good to know what is the intention in terms of what compostable material is a new privately owned plant gonna need, right?
Yeah, I believe we were waiting on what proposals we get and what the successful proposal is for the organics program to evaluate whether we do co-collection of leaf and yard waste or separate collection or this sort of thing. But yeah, definitely a factor in.
Well, I don't know about co-collection. I'm saying I want to know is the leaf and yard waste, which includes a lot of branches, wood, right? I mean, is that part of what a plant can compost? But co-collection, I don't. If it isn't, then why would you have co-collection? Okay. All right. Okay. So moved, Councillor Mace?
We should probably get.
Yeah, if I could just read it out, I want to make
amendment,
sure
yeah.
the intent is here. So it would be that the Winnipeg Public Service report back to the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment in 60 days on a cost comparison, including the cost of wages and benefits for leaf and yard waste collection provided by city and Winnipeg staff and collection by private contractors for both the entire city or for a specific zone.
Good. I think that.
Well, you're evaluating
Yeah.
what equipment the city already has available, right? All right.
Sounds good to me. So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried.
Thank you.
Oh, report number 9, solid waste. It's a proposal to say to help subsidize the waste management fee and lower the management fee by charging a 1% property tax increase. Do you want to speak to that? You're the seconder, Councillor?
It went through a few drafts, so but I mean, the intent is it could have been 1%, could have been 3%, could have been, the on the average home, the fee that we approved was, I think, 7.5%. I'm saying 8%, that was a little off, 7.5% on the average home. So then, how do you ameliorate that? How do you? So 1% is, could have been used, or frankly, other numbers. So the intent here is to soften the blow on lower income households, lower than average property value households, I suppose.
Way we used to pay for it.
Yeah, there's, you know, it's a budget referral. It's a bit tricky as to where it goes here, I have to admit, but and I liked the intent of it, which was, I mean, when I first ran in 2011, the city voted to bring in that garbage fee, and I remember saying I'd prefer to see this straightforward, like just don't claim there's a property tax freeze and then increase fees per household. So I think Councilor Rollins had some comments as well, but
Yep, good.
I mean, it's a device to try to reallocate a bit of it, so it's not property tax.
Councilor Rhodes?
I just had the same comment that basically Councilor May has just made. The 1% property tax increase and its dedication doesn't feel like it's the purview of this committee. It does feel like it's a recommendation, so a question for clerks on considerations of the trajectory up and through the various committees.
So this item will be going up to council just as it was a
It
notice of
goes back
motion.
to
No, I
council, but-
understand. I've been here for 8 years. I do understand that it goes to council. I'm saying up and out of budget. Like the principle of charity has to apply, you guys, when I'm speaking. It's just getting.
My apologies, that was not my intent. Just because this has to do with the solid waste utility, that is why it's here as a budget referral from SPC of Water Waste Environment.
Right, okay. Can I,
So that doesn't answer my question at all.
what
I'm
was your
asking
question?
for, is there anything more different needed for it to be successful once it gets through budget? For instance, does it need to go to taxation?
That could be a possibility due to the fact that it is calling for, if it is, let me rephrase this. For clarity, is the 1% property tax increase indicated in this motion? Is it referring to existing increases that have been previously communicated? Or is this encouraging an additional 1% property tax increase? If it is, if it was looking for an additional 1% increase, then it would have to go to assessment and taxation. If this has to do with allocating current budgeted funds, then it would be a budget referral to the Standing Policy Committee of Water, Waste and Environment. Because it would have to do with the allocation of the overall.
Okay. This motion reads, according to the way I read it, it's adding a new 1%, according to the way I read it. Can I make, okay, colleagues, I want to make we did pass a motion, one recommendation as part of the overall motion. We moved it forward, whether you voted for it at council or not, that's besides the point. We added a recommendation that we go to the province to amend the charter to allow us to utilize the value of property, the assessed value of property to determine what the waste management fee would be for any particular housing unit that receives city service. We don't know where that's going yet. But it doesn't cost the province any money to do it, so I don't know why they would be opposed to it. The request is has or is going in. This motion is actually referring to go back to property taxes, which that decision was already made not to do. So I'm thinking we just receive this as information at this point.
Could we land halfway between? Your point's a good one. That did pass in council. Yeah, just say, add a provision saying that. I don't think we're laying over you. This has to snake back up anyway, doesn't it?
This could be laid over once, but ultimately it does need to go to council within 60 days.
Well, perhaps we can lay it over and see if the province answers. It's a fair point from Councillor Eady. If the province says yes, then that's a different ballgame. It's a fair point. So we could, not that I desperately want to debate this yet again, but in light of those comments, it's a fair comment from Councillor Eady, and hopefully it'll be quicker than the 3.5 months they took to respond on that geothermal question, to write a 1-sentence reply and then to reverse it. Anyway, off topic. Yeah, no, I'm fine with that, Councillor Eady. That's actually a fair point. Let's see if they say yes,
So
totally.
you want to move layover then?
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. We got a few weeks.
30 days can be done here. Any more than 30 days, it would need to be a recommendation up to council.
Yeah,
to provide the extension.
Okay, well, let's let them get to us.
So you want to do 30 days, okay?
Layover for 30 days. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That's carried.
Adjourn.
Thank you, Counselor Rowland. All those are in favor? Everybody's in favor. Oh, gosh.